Chapter 158. What's wrong? Ping had gone to deliver food to Fu Shi and talked to the guards for a while. She had just returned, but before she entered the house she saw people surrounding the pond and quickly walked over. Ping, 2 treasured fish were killed here. A woman with a loud voice said. Ping was shocked. After hearing the details, she wanted to tear the murderer into pieces. Unfortunately, the murderer was still unknown. When she heard that Xiao Xian was misunderstood again, she was very dissatisfied. Xiao Xian is a good person. He doesn't even want my water moon stone. What? There was actually someone who didn't like the water moon stone. The surrounding people suddenly felt that Xiao Xian was too safe. Those who wanted to steal the water moonstones in their tribe were not good people. Compared to them, Xiao Xian was an outsider who was not interested in the water moonstones. Everyone suddenly felt more comfortable around him. But thinking about it, how could Xiao Xian not like the water moonstone? It was such a good thing, why didn't he like it? Xiao Xian, the water moonstone is really good. You can exchange it for many things in other tribes. Yes, Xiao Xian, it must be because Fu Shi's water moonstone is small and dark. Maybe it's an old stone that has been there for a few years. Come to my house, our water moonstone is big and bright. We just fished it out last year. If it comes out this year, there will definitely be bigger ones. Come to my house, my water moonstone is big too. My daughter personally put it away last year. Alright, my daughter is over there. She's very pretty. Xiao Xian, you will definitely like her. The auntie who spoke narrowed her eyes and pointed in the direction of her house. Xiao Xian looked in the direction the auntie was pointing at. There was a young lady standing on the steps of a house. At this moment, the lady was smiling at him with her mouth wide open from ear to ear. Probably because she had just eaten dinner, there were still traces of blood on her white teeth. It was really a big mouth. Ah! Xiao Xian turned his head and smiled stiffly. Fortunately, this was not the time to talk too much. Chun took away the 2 dead crocodiles and told everyone to pay attention to the surroundings. Also, pay attention to the small crocodiles in the pools around their houses. Xiao Xian returned to the house covered in blood, holding the beef leg. Although he had been wrong twice, he really didn't know what to do with this group of people. After all, he wasn't injured. Moreover, Xiao Xian wanted to follow them to learn more about other tribes. Now that the drumming tribe also wanted to leave a good impression on them, Xiao Xian wouldn't quarrel with them because of this. Ping looked at the baby crocodile in Xiao Xian's hand and felt sad. She had watched them break out of their shells. When they broke out of their shells because the big crocodile had already left, she had personally helped them break out of their shells. Many people in the drumming tribe were rash and irritable, but they were also easily emotional. When they were emotional, they would talk a lot. After Ping returned, she told Xiao Xian a lot about the little crocodiles. The current batch of crocodiles in the tribe were not born during the breeding season, so they were in the minority. Without the protection of the big crocodiles, these little crocodiles were easily harmed. Therefore, every year the people in the tribe would take special care of these little crocodiles. Generally speaking, the big crocodiles that had left would return here after the 2 moons overlapped and the river rose again. They would then lay eggs and hatch their young. At that time, a large number of baby crocodiles would be born. Seeing that only one of the 3 little crocodiles was left, Ping started crying as she spoke. At this time, Qinjia also returned home. To distract Ping, Xiao Xian brought the brown-eyed baby crocodile back to the room. Now that he had calmed down, he carefully recalled the movements he had heard before, as well as the details he saw when he walked to the pool. Although this was not the core area of the drumming tribe, there were still many houses. Other than the people guarding outside, how could there be people walking around outside? How could a fearsome beast sneak in from outside without a sound? If it was not done by an internal member, then the person who killed the 2 little crocodiles was too capable. The little crocodile that Xiao Xian brought back was still crying out. It was probably scared stiff and did not want to return to the pool. Instead, it kept following Xiao Xian. The 3 little crocodiles were from the same nest and often moved together. Even if they were separated, they would not be too far apart. The people in the tribe said that these little crocodiles were very sensitive to people's likes and dislikes. Perhaps they discovered that person, which was why they cried out. They were also killed because of their cries, because if they were allowed to cry out, it would attract other people's attention. Now, the crocodile that could cry out was dead, and the mute in front of him saved its life. After comforting his mother, Qinjia was beaten up again. He came to Xiao Xian and asked, "When you went over, you only saw the little fish that was killed. Did you really not see anyone?" Xiao Xian raised his head and looked at Qinjia. This child had been beaten up because he ran around at night, but this injury was nothing to them. "I didn't see any strangers," Xiao Xian said. Although he was not familiar with the surrounding families, he had seen them once and had an impression of them. At that time he did not see anyone else around, and before that he did not notice any strangers around. Not necessarily strangers. For example, someone familiar? Qinjia was somewhat conflicted. He was not good at hiding his thoughts, and his expression told Xiao Xian what this child was thinking. As an outsider, Xiao Xian would not easily talk about the matters of the drumming tribe. Instead he asked, "Yesterday who pushed you down the river?" Qinjia raised his head in surprise. "How do you know I was pushed?" After coming back he only told others that he accidentally fell down, but did not tell anyone the truth. "I guessed," Xiao Xian said. Although Qinjia looked unreliable for many details, this child was still very cautious. It was impossible for him to know that there was danger at the river bank and still go there. Perhaps the drumming tribe's chief and shaman also knew, but they did not interrogate Qinjia. They might even know more. Those two were not simple-minded people. After hiding the secret in his heart for 2 days, Qinjia felt that he could not hold it in any longer. However, he did not dare to tell the others in the tribe. Just now, when he was outside, he tried to ask his friends about it. Their reactions were very strong, and they felt that it was definitely not someone from the tribe who did it. "So, you think there is a mole?" Xiao Xian asked. "What is a mole?" "It means that the person who did this is someone who is hiding in the tribe." "Yes." Since they all said that Xiao Xian was a good person, then he should be able to tell, right? Qinjia thought to himself. "That day when I sneaked out to play, I saw some people walking towards the river bank, so I followed them. There were other people there. I heard them talking, but I did not hear what they were saying. After they left, when I walked to the river bank, I was pushed by someone." Qinjia told Xiao Xian about what happened that day. "What did that person look like?" "I don't remember." Qinjia bit his hand, feeling very conflicted. He really tried very hard to think, but he just could not remember. He always felt that the person's face was blurry, but looking at the figure he really did look like someone from the tribe. If not, he would not have kept this a secret. He really could not remember what that person looked like. Xiao Xian patted Qinjia's shoulder. "If you don't remember, then forget it. Also, don't tell anyone about this. Even if you do, you have to find someone you absolutely trust. For example, your parents. If that mole knows that you know a lot of things, you might end up like the 2 little treasured fish that were killed tonight." "Why?" Qinjia's face was full of fear. "Because they can cry." Xiao Xian also touched the mute little crocodile in his hand, but it can't, so it survived. Qinjia was not too stupid. After thinking for a while, he understood Xiao Xian's meaning. With a pale face he said, I'll go find mother first." Regardless of whether the truth was as Xiao Xian imagined, at least by scaring Qinjia, Qinjia would not run around alone. Otherwise, there was a real possibility that he would be killed. When there are many tribes, it is easy to get chaotic. Don't you think so? Xiao Xian tore off a piece of meat and put it in front of the little crocodile's mouth. The teeth of crocodiles belong to the truncated tooth type. They can't directly bite off a piece of meat like cats, so they have to roll or sway to bite off the meat. This is the familiar death roll and sway dance of the crocodile. Seeing the little crocodile roll around after biting the meat, Xiao Xian thought of the people in the tribe as well as Caesar and the others. He wondered how they were doing now. When he left the tribe he didn't think so, but now he missed them. He remembered that on the day he left, Xiao Xian wanted to tell the shaman and old Ku not to worry. In the end he only said 2 words before they beat him up with their crutches. Thinking of this, Xiao Xian couldn't help but laugh. The moonlight outside the window was even brighter than last night. Soon it would be the day when the 2 moons overlapped. If he wanted to go back he would have to wait at least a year. In the next few days the tribe was very peaceful. There were no more abnormal situations, but Fu Shi and the other tribe guards were even more vigilant. The day when the 2 moons overlapped was one of the most important days of the year. Other than the sacrificial ceremony, it was also one of the most important days. They called it the Water Moon Festival. In the drumming tribe, there was a small river winding around the tribe. The people of the drumming tribe called it the Water Moon Path. Before and after the 2 moons overlapped, when the river level lowered, the Water Moon Path would be separated from the river. When the 2 moons overlapped in the night sky, every family of the drumming tribe would guard the path closest to their house, waiting for the water moonstones to appear so that they could go down to collect them. Even though Xiao Xian was curious about the production of the water moonstones, in order to avoid suspicion, he didn't take the initiative to follow them. However, Ping was very enthusiastic. It was probably because someone said that her family's water moonstones weren't good that night. She wanted to prove it in front of Xiaoxian, so she let Xiaoxian go with her. Fu Shi was responsible for guarding the path, so he didn't go with Ping and Qinjia. My families will definitely be the best this year. Nonsense, my families is the best. You guys don't need to argue. In any case, the first place will definitely be my family. Before they even reached the water moon path, a group of children had already started arguing. The tribe had given each family an area. When the time came to collect the water moonstones, they could only collect them in their own area. Whether they collected more or less, they had to bear the responsibility. It had nothing to do with others. Xiaoxian, Ping and Qinjia stood together. This was the area of Qinjia's family. Looking at the muddy river in front of them, which was no more than 5 meters wide, it was hard to associate it with the name Water Moon Path. Xiaoxian was looking forward to what would happen next. Such a bright stone, how did it come out from this muddy river? The two moons overlapped more and more in the sky. Xiaoxian suddenly heard a dense and small sound, as if iron powder was being forcefully attracted by a magnetic force. The muddy river in front of them was becoming clearer and clearer at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chapter 159. Ping and Qinjia stood on the shore, waiting nervously. The amount of water moonstones they could produce in this section would determine whether they would be rich or poor in the coming days. If they could produce a lot of water moonstones and each of them was big and bright, their family would be rich this year. When the trading day came, they could bring them out to exchange for a lot of things. However, if the stones they produced were small and small, then it would be hard. Whether they were poor or rich, it all depended on this part of the river. Xiaoxian felt that this method was very novel. Ping was already praying nervously. Qinjia was also biting his hands. He liked to bite his hands when he was nervous. The muddy river water became clearer and clearer. In less than 10 minutes, it had already become translucent. There was even light emitting from the bottom of the river. It was even more eye-catching than the moon in the sky. The muddy river gradually became clear. At the bottom of the river they could see some things emitting light. Those were the water moonstones. The white light passed through the river and reflected in the eyes of the people on the shore. Ha, ha 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 ha. Some people laughed wildly. Their part of the river was especially bright. This meant that there would be more water moonstones produced there. Some people were happy while others were worried. Some parts of the river were dimmer than others. There were a lot less water moonstones there. Ha 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 ha. Qinjia also laughed arrogantly. Their part of the river was brighter than the other two families. He laughed and made a gesture to the other two families, showing off. Ping knelt by the river bank, watching the white light at the bottom of the river get brighter and brighter. She was so excited that no one knew what she was mumbling. The surrounding families looked at Qinjia and his mother with envy and jealousy. But there was nothing they could do. Whether it was more or less, they had already determined it. Even if they were jealous, they couldn't snatch it. They could only comfort themselves that maybe next year their family would become like that. Xiaoxian felt the power of the fire seed. The fire seed of the drumming tribe? What kind of fire seed was this tribe that lived in the puddles and rivers? In the Yinjiao tribe, the shaman was able to connect the fire seed's power to the houses at the top of the mountain. That was why the houses at the top of the mountain were always warm during the winter. And here, the production of these water moonstones seemed to be closely related to the fire seed of the drumming tribe. No wonder Fu Shi said that this was their drumming tribe's specialty. The power of the fire seed was special. After Ping prayed and expressed her gratitude, she turned to Qinjia, who was already itching to give it a try, and said, "Enter the water." "All right." Qinjia flung off the beast skin coat on his body, covering his entire body with totem patterns, and jumped into the clear and bright river. Many children from other families were like Qinjia, impatiently jumping into the water to fish for the water moonstones. Xiaoxian noticed that when the children were swimming, their legs weren't alternately kicking the water. Instead they were swaying left and right. Their bones seemed to have been softened. The totemic patterns covered their bodies like scales. At first glance, it looked like the powerful tail of a crocodile that was swaying in the water. The people of the drumming tribe were good swimmers. Even if they were underwater, they could stay underwater for a long time. Therefore, the work of digging the water moonstones from the bottom of the river was extremely simple for them. As the first stone dug out this year, they had to choose a big one. The people of the drumming tribe believed that a good start would lead to better results. Perhaps there would be more stones as big as this one dug out later. Therefore, the first stone had to be chosen well. Qinjia swam back and forth at the bottom of the river. Finally, he chose a spot and dug out a very big and bright water moonstone. He didn't swim upstream but turned around and threw it towards the river bank. The water moonstone that was thrown out of the water was accurately caught by Ping. She wiped the water off the stone and looked at it excitedly. She was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth, and the smile on her face grew wider and wider. After looking at it for a while, Ping didn't put it into the basket at the side. Instead, she handed it to Xiaoxian. Xiaoxian, look. This is the stone my family produced this year. Isn't it big? Isn't it bright? You can definitely exchange it for many good things. Xiaoxian took it. It was cool to the touch, but it was much brighter than the one Fu Shi showed him that night. This was because it was newly produced. However, Xiaoxian still couldn't absorb any energy from it. He could only feel that this stone was related to the drumming tribe's fire seed and totem. Other than the fire seed and totem, these stones were also closely related to the crocodiles that had followed the river downstream. According to the people of the drumming tribe, when the crocodiles returned, they would spit out some stones from their stomachs into the water moon canal. These stones would eventually become water moonstones. Every year, after the water moonstones were picked out, new stones would enter, and the next year new stones would be picked up. But without these crocodiles there wouldn't be any water moonstones here. The people of the drumming tribe didn't know how many stones were spat out by the treasured fish, and which of these stones could become water moonstones. Even if it was artificially changed, the results would be different from what they expected. In the end, they could only pray to the totem, hoping for more gifts. This was also the main reason why the drumming tribe called the crocodiles the treasured fish. Xiaoxian had a classmate in his past life who also raised crocodiles. He also heard that his family's crocodiles ate stones, and the stones they ate were called stomach stones. They were used to help the crocodiles grind down food that was difficult to digest. He wondered if the stones the drumming tribe's crocodiles spat out in the water moon canal were also used as stomach stones. Previously, the most turbid river in the entire tribe actually produced such bright water moonstones. What a magical place. After looking, Xiaoxian carefully placed the stone into a rattan basket at the side. Seeing Xiaoxian's actions, Ping's impression of Xiaoxian became even better. She fished out the newly placed stone and stuffed it into Xiaoxian's hands. Take it. When you go out in the future, you can use it to exchange for many good things. When you go to other tribes to exchange for things you want, you'll know how good water moonstones are. This was the feeling of becoming a nouveau riche. With such a big stone, giving it away didn't hurt at all. Ping didn't say much. After stuffing the stone into Xiaoxian's hands, she hurriedly went to receive the other stones that Qinjia threw up. Thank you. Xiaoxian put the stone into the animal skin bag and helped Ping look after the rattan basket. Tonight it was not a peaceful night. Danger was lurking. Not only Xiaoxian but the people of the drumming tribe were also prepared. Every year at this time many things would happen. They were already used to it and were ready to fight at any time. That was why they let their children fish for stones, while the adults at home were always vigilant of their surroundings. Once they found anything unusual they would join in the battle. Not far from the water moon canal, Fu Shi and his companions were vigilantly watching their surroundings. However, they also wanted to know the situation at the water moon canal. They didn't know how their own family situation was this year. I feel that my family will definitely have a lot this year, Fu Shi said. My family definitely won't have less than yours. The people beside Fu Shi were not convinced. I don't expect it to be the most as long as it's not too little. Another person whispered. Useless. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't decide. So I don't have much hope. As they were talking, the people who came to investigate the situation at the water moon canal came over. Fu Shi, your family is rich this year. That part of your house is the brightest. The man said while panting. Wow. Fu Shi was so excited that he couldn't wait to jump a few rounds. This is great. And when the time comes to trade I'll get more good things. I'll get a few beautiful clothes for Ping and a few better stone tools for Qinjia. These people were like Fu Shi. Although their family didn't have as much as Fu Shi's family this year, it was still quite a lot. When the time comes to trade, what should they get? Just as they were thinking, Fu Shi's face froze. The muscles under his skin suddenly swelled, causing his already sturdy body to become even thicker. Black totem patterns covered his entire body like sturdy scales. His legs instantly exploded with a powerful force, and he disappeared from the spot. In one step he caught up with the person who wanted to rush over. Fu Shi's swollen arms were instantly raised high. His arms were covered with totem patterns and every muscle was filled with power. His skin became even tighter under the expansion of his muscles. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and he quickly smashed towards the person. Like a cannonball, his fist smashed onto the person's body. Bang! The person who was about to rush out was smashed to the ground with all his strength. Just as the first fist landed, the second fist followed. Fu Shi's fist directly smashed the other person's head. The person lying on the ground had different totem patterns from the drumming tribe. Because of the death of the main body, they quickly disappeared. The sound of Fu Shi's breathing was not the usual sound of wheezing, but a series of rough grunts. His pupils were like the tip of a sword, and some dense black patterns extended from there to the surroundings. His eyes flashed coldly. After killing one person, Fu Shi did not stop. The muscles in his legs suddenly swelled, and his originally low body suddenly fell to the ground. His palms and legs vigorously slammed the ground, and his body quickly pushed out, rushing towards another person. The wet muddy water under his feet splashed everywhere. Competing with a crocodile in long-distance running was possible, but competing with it in an instant was difficult. The advantage of a crocodile was not speed, but reaction and explosive power. You might be able to outrun them, but the problem was whether they gave you a chance to run at the start of the race. Perhaps before you could run they had already bitten you. The people of the drumming tribe had many characteristics similar to crocodiles. They were strong and their speed was not fast. But in an instant their opponents would always be overwhelmed. Another person was clamped down by Fu Shi, and in the next moment he was twisted in the middle. Just now the two people who passed by were too fast, and did not give Fu Shi enough time to send a message to the others. Now, after dealing with two opponents in succession, Fu Shi took advantage of this gap and roared from his throat like an ancient beast. The roar passed through the wet area, through the forest, like a war knife, splitting the silence of the night. The moon in the sky shone brightly, but under the moonlight the battle had already begun. Chapter 160. Fu Shi's roar made everyone understand that tonight's slaughter had already begun. The people guarding the outer perimeter had already started fighting with the invaders. Roars, collisions and screams filled the air. At the same time, the people on the shore of the Water-Moon Canal also increased their speed. Since the battle on the outer perimeter had begun, the warriors there would naturally be strict defenses. However, no one knew if the defensive line would be broken through. Moreover, this time the invaders were from the drumming tribe. These people were simply rushing to die, completely crazy. Take advantage of the fact that they haven't arrived yet. Hurry up and get the water moonstones. Saying this, Ping felt that Qinjia alone was too slow. She looked at the bottom of the river where her family was, and then at the other families. The other families had already sent people to help, but her family only had Qinjia alone. This year their family had more water moonstones than the others. If this continued, they would definitely take longer to fish. This was not good. Once time passed, the water moonstones would become darker and darker, until they became ordinary stones. So they had to speed up. Looking at Xiao Xian beside her, Ping said, "Xiao Xian, I'll go down with Qinjia to fish for the water moonstones. When the time comes we'll throw them up. You stay here and catch them." "Okay, no problem." Ping jumped into the water and quickly swam to the bottom of the river, digging for the water moonstones with Qinjia. Some of the water moonstones on the surface of the river had already been thrown ashore by Qinjia, leaving behind some that were partially buried in the mud. Xiao Xian placed the stones thrown by Ping and Qinjia into the rattan basket. Because of the water moonstones inside, the rattan basket emitted a bright white light. However, because the rattan basket was surrounded by a layer of animal skin, the light only shone from the top of the rattan basket, not from the bottom of the basket. Catching the water moonstones thrown ashore and placing them into the rattan basket, Xiao Xian also paid attention to the sounds of fighting in the distance. There seemed to be quite a few people coming. However, because of the robbing and theft of the water moonstones every year, the drumming tribe was well prepared. There shouldn't be any big problems. As the water moonstones were fished out one by one, the light in the water moon canal became darker and darker. About half an hour later, there was basically no light left in the canal. On the shore there were rattan baskets emitting light. But now no one was happy because of the water moonstones that they had fished out. Instead they were very worried. "Looks like we won't be able to defend against it," an older man said. "Someone will always come. Fortunately, we've already fished out the water moonstones. Otherwise, they would have taken advantage of us again," a woman said fiercely. Similar things had happened in the past. The guards at the outer layer might not be able to stop all the intruders, and some of the people who rushed into the tribe would steal the water moonstones that had not been fished out from the water moon channel. The totem patterns on the body of the elder who had spoken earlier appeared. He jumped into the water and swam to the other side of the channel. He lowered his body slightly. He waited for a moment. Then he took a step forward. His legs instantly exploded with power, leaving deep footprints on the ground. His body suddenly soared into the sky and rushed out like lightning. The wide animal skin clothes on his body fluttered because of the change in the airflow. A figure quickly came out from the forest. Before he could react, he was hit by a punch and the bones in his chest cracked. The person who hadn't died was still struggling. But in the next moment, a large hand with sharp claws pressed down on his heart. Pucci. The hand directly penetrated and crushed the intruder's heart. From the moment the elder moved to the moment he killed the intruder, everything happened in a very short time. Although it looked like a simple fight, it was in fact not so. Xiao Xian realized that after killing the intruder, the elder was panting heavily. If they couldn't kill the intruder in an instant, the longer the battle dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. Other than the moment they started to charge, their speed was slower than the intruder's. If the intruder successfully stole the water moon stone and escaped, the people here might not be able to catch up to him. Someone came so quickly? Ping looked worried. In the past few years, there were people who could rush here at this time. But this year the tribe had made a lot of preparations. There were also many barriers set up outside. Originally, they thought that they could delay for a little longer to give the water moon channel more time to prepare and settle down. But now it seemed that things were worse than they thought. Quickly let the children take the water moon stones back, the elder said. Actually, even if he didn't say it, the others could also guess the current situation. Putting the last water moon stone into the rattan basket, Ping wrapped the animal skin around the basket and tied it with a straw rope. The originally dazzling white light was completely blocked. Passing the rattan basket to Qinjia, Ping said, "Quickly take the water moon stones back." Qinjia didn't say anything more. This kind of thing he had encountered many times since he was young. Mother. Carrying the rattan basket and walking a few steps, Qinjia looked back at Ping and shouted, "Go back. Be smart. You must hide well." Ping exhorted. And the surrounding families were in the same situation. They let the children take the water moon stones back, while the adults stood guard here. Ping and the surrounding families were the same. The adults, no matter male or female, would all stand guard here. With the water moon channel as the boundary, this was the second line of defense. After this, it would be the tribe's residence. "I'll stay here to help you," Xiao Xian said. "No, Xiao Xian, you take Qinjia and the others back. You must be careful to hide well. There will definitely be many people from the drumming tribe coming this time. They won't let go of any opportunity. If someone rushes into the tribe, whether it's the water moon stones or the children, it will be hard to escape. Even if the water moon stones are stolen, don't fight with them. There will be people in the tribe to help. As long as you hide well and wait for the rest of the tribe, it will be fine." With Xiao Xian here, she felt more at ease. Qinjia, this brat, was disobedient and liked to run around. If there was no one watching over him, she would feel uneasy. When this matter was over, she would give more water moon stones to Xiao Xian as thanks. After these few days, Ping felt that Xiao Xian should be a reliable person. Xiao Xian thought for a while and nodded, "Okay, I'll go back with Qinjia." The surrounding people and Ping lived very close to each other, so the children of several families went back together. Xiao Xian went with them. Carrying a large basket of water moon stones, the group of children's feet were not slow. They were probably used to this kind of thing and did not panic. After returning to their homes, they all went back to their own homes. The place where the water moon stones were hidden was actually in the water. In the room where Fu Shi and Ping slept, Qinjia lifted up a few wooden planks and carefully placed the rattan basket down. Directly below was the pool. The water here was able to submerge the rattan basket. The murky water was able to hide the rattan basket very well. After placing the rattan basket down, Qinjia then remembered that there was an outsider here. He carefully raised his head to take a look, only to find that Xiao Xian was not paying attention to him at all. Instead, he was busy at the window. "What are you doing?" Qinjia asked. "Just in case, adding a layer of protection," Xiao Xian replied. When Qinjia came over, Xiao Xian had already finished dealing with the matter. The windows of the drumming tribe were relatively large. Every bedroom had a large window. Most of the time they would use the window as a door, directly entering and exiting through the window. Therefore, after closing the door, the window was the only way in and out. Qinjia looked at the window and did not find anything special. Just as he was about to reach out and touch the window frame, he was stopped by Xiao Xian. "Your mother told you to hide well," Xiao Xian said. Qinjia bit his hand in annoyance. "No need to hide, I didn't hide before. I'll just wait here." He originally wanted to lean against the window and take a look outside, but when he thought of Xiao Xian's actions just now, he held back and sat there, continuing to bite his hand. He heard that this time it would be even more dangerous. He did not know if anything would happen to his father and mother. In the past, his grandparents had lost their lives in this kind of attack. Xiao Xian glanced at Qinjia. If you want to hide, will you also hide in the pool? Yes. There's a hole in the pool where you can hide. There was no air in the hole under the pool. Only the drumming tribe, who were good at swimming, could hold their breath for a long time. Others could not do what they did. Outside there were small crocodiles calling out. They were from the other pools. Probably because they felt uneasy they kept calling out. This included the brown-eyed crocodile in Qinjia's family pool. Xiao Xian looked outside and did not see any intruders. There was not even a person walking around. Everyone stayed in their own houses with their doors tightly shut. No one went out. You wait here, I'll go out and take a look, Xiao Xian said. After taking 2 steps he turned around and said, don't touch the window. If you want to hide, you can enter the pool from under the wooden planks. Remember, if anyone comes to call you, don't come out of the window. Stand as far away from the window as possible. I know, Qinjia replied. Xiao Xian jumped out of the window without touching the frame at all. Compared to the fighting outside the tribe, the residential area was much quieter. Of course, that was on the premise that there were no crocodiles calling out. But because of the crocodiles calling out in the pool, it made people feel more nervous and full of danger. The mute crocodile had already climbed out of the pool and was with the other crocodiles in the pool. Sensing Xiao Xian's arrival, it broke away from its small group and headed towards Xiao Xian. On the other side, Qinjia, who was staying in the house, was worried about his parents' situation. Suddenly he heard someone calling his name from outside. Qinjia, are you home? The voice was very familiar. It sounded like someone from the tribe. At the same time, there was the sound of footsteps coming up the stairs. The wooden planks creaked as they approached step by step. Who is it? Qinjia wanted to jump out of the window to take a look, but he remembered Xiao Xian's instructions before he left. He stopped and stood 2 steps away from the window looking out. A figure heard Qinjia's voice and walked to the window looking into the room. It was dressed like a tribesman. His face looked familiar. It was one of the tribe's patrolling warriors. But Qinjia had a strange feeling. Chapter 161. What's the matter? Qinjia did not immediately walk over but stood still and asked. The chief asked me to bring you all over. This time the drumming tribe has sent many people, so it's not safe for you all to stay here. The other party said. Seeing that Qinjia was still doubtful, the man took out a square bone plate with the drumming tribe's totem pattern on it. Here it was equivalent to the chief's command and was a proof. Seeing the bone plate, Qinjia's heart relaxed slightly. Then what about my family's water moonstones? Qinjia asked again. Bring them along. If we leave them here they will find us. The man said. Okay. Qinjia did not think that the chief would be greedy for his family's water moonstones. If he could bring the water moonstones to the central area, it would be much safer. Suppressing the strange feeling in his heart, Qinjia removed the wooden plank and pulled out the rattan basket filled with water moonstones from the water. Carrying it he walked towards the window. As he walked he asked, has Tail and the others all gone over? Tail was a nearby child about the same age as Qinjia. They often played together. Because his hair was tied up in a bundle and was somewhat stiff, looking like a crocodile's tail, everyone gave him such a name. Yes, they're waiting at the edge of the forest. You'll see them soon. As the man spoke he looked around. There were people in the other houses looking in this direction. He waved his hand, you all come out too, let's leave together. Okay. The people on the other side replied. Hearing that many people he knew were here, Qinjia's heart was happy. Hugging the rattan basket he planned to climb out of the window. But in the next moment he remembered Xiao Xian's warning. Xiao Xian said, don't leave the window if anyone comes over. Then should he leave or not? Thus, when he was half a step away from the window, Qinjia stopped and looked at the person standing outside. Because of the moonlight, half of the person's face was covered in shadows. His eyes were brown and yellow, the eyes of the drumming tribe. But it was strange. Why did this person's face become more and more blurred? His face was blurred? Qinjia was startled. Looking at the person outside the window, his face showed vigilance. What's wrong? Come out quickly, everyone is waiting. The man urged. Not only did Qinjia not move forward, he quickly retreated a few steps, still vigilantly staring at the person in front of the window. He was suspicious of the person in front of him, but when he thought about the domino he had taken out, it was indeed given to him by the leader. Should he give it out or not? Seeing that Qinjia did not move, the person waiting outside the window scolded him, but Qinjia still did not move forward. His face was still filled with hesitation as he held onto the rattan basket tightly, as if he was guarding against a thief. After a few words of reprimand to no avail, the man lost his patience. Murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he raised his foot, intending to enter. The moment the other party looked at him, Qinjia felt as if he had returned to the day when he was pushed into the river. It's him. It was the person in front of him. Qinjia's heart was as cold as ice. He wanted to escape but he couldn't. Just as he was about to shout and expose this person, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. The other party leaped up and stepped on the windowsill. With just a light jump he would be able to enter the house. However, the moment he stepped on the windowsill, a rapid buzzing sound rang out. The person who was about to jump through the window paused. His feet and some parts of his body were tied up by thin threads. It was these threads that caused his movements to stop for a moment. What's going on? Why is there such a thing at the window? Before he had time to wonder, a stone knife pierced his abdomen from behind. Oh. Under the moonlight, dark blood dripped from the knife. You. He turned his head, only to find that the person he thought had left was actually standing behind him without a sound. Previously, when he quietly came over, he saw Qinjia and Xiao Xian who entered the house together with Qinjia. However, he did not know Xiao Xian's strength, so he hesitated whether or not he should act according to plan. Xiao Xian's departure was exactly what he wanted. Once he saw Xiao Xian leave, he came over. He originally thought that Qinjia, this idiot, would be tricked out quickly, but who would have thought that such a thing would happen? Xiao Xian threw the incapacitated person to the side and looked at the dumbstruck Qinjia in the room. Are you all right? I'm fine, I can now. Qinjia looked at the window, his mind still replaying the moment just now. In the blink of an eye, that person was tied up. No wonder Xiao Xian did not allow him to touch the window. You can now, Xiao Xian said. Qinjia put down the rattan basket, climbed out of the window, and looked at the person who was thrown to the side. Tied up by thin threads and stabbed with a knife. Although he was not dead, he was no longer a threat. You knew that someone would come? Qinjia asked Xiao Xian. I guessed. At this time, the people who were excitedly packing up saw the situation in front of them, and were all frightened. What happened? Qinjia, you killed your own people? He just said that he would bring us to the chief. Qinjia, didn't you hear him? Someone said with dissatisfaction. He's a traitor. He betrayed the drumming tribe. Qinjia said loudly. He's not. A voice came from not far away. Xiao Xian had already sensed that someone was approaching, but after discovering the identity of the other party, he did not make a sound. Qingyi? Qinjia looked at the person walking over. Qingyi was the youth who was with Xiao Xian that day when he was mistakenly thought to have killed the crocodile. He was the chief's son and had a high position in the drumming tribe. Xiao Xian also found that many people in the drumming tribe were very afraid of Qingyi. You said he's not a traitor and did not betray the drumming tribe? How is that possible? I was pushed into the river by him that day, it must be him. Although the voice was different, Qinjia felt that the person who pushed him that day was this person. Qinjia, you're mistaken again, right? Yes, Qinjia, you must be mistaken. Just now he said that he would bring us to the chief. A few people around Qinjia's age said. Xiao Xian did not make a sound, waiting for Qingyi's next words. He did not kill the person just now, keeping him alive so that it would be easier to interrogate him. However, Xiao Xian did not doubt his identity. The crocodile in the pond had already opened its mouth towards the person, as if it wanted to bite him. I said he did not betray the drumming tribe because he is not a member of the drumming tribe. How can he betray us? As he spoke, Qingyi reached out and grabbed the neck of the person on the ground, gently twisting it. The person who was kept alive by Xiao Xian really stopped breathing. After he stopped breathing, the person's body also changed. His body shrunk a little and his face was no longer the same as before. Xiao Xian moved his hand, and the silk thread that was originally tightly tied to the person slid down as if it had a life of its own. Seeing that everyone was looking at the silk thread in his hand, Xiao Xian said, Our tribe uses it to set up traps to catch prey. The few of them had an I understand expression on their faces, but they were thinking about other things in their hearts. They had heard from their elders that in many tribes the warriors were not strong, so in order to not starve, they would use other methods to hunt, such as traps. Therefore, including Qinjia, the children all thought that in Xiao Xian's tribe, the warriors must be very weak. Retrieving the silk thread, Xiao Xian looked at Qingyi and asked, Who is this person? I don't know. Knowing that there was a spy, the tribe had indeed made arrangements. However, this place was not in the core area of the tribe, so the people arranged by the tribe had not yet arrived. Qing Yi had chased after a spy here, but he did not expect to encounter such a scene. The chief indeed told the children here to bring the water moonstones over, but the person in charge of notifying this area was me, not him. Qing Yi pointed at the dead person and said, there were already people from the drumming tribe who had entered. They were the best at hiding. They passed through the chaotic battlefield outside and infiltrated into the tribe. They were very skilled at hiding, quietly lurking and killing at any time. Even the patrolling warriors in the tribe could not detect them all, so there were always areas where they were overlooked. As for the people who attacked the drumming tribe at the beginning, they were only there to attract attention. The tribe had already arranged for people to wait in various places, so that they could clean up these hidden people one by one. However, seeing that the situation was not right, the chief sent some people to inform the residents near the border to move inwards. After this incident they would return. After all, most of the people hiding in their homes were children, so they did not have much fighting power and still needed protection. Knowing that they really had to go to the chief's place, the few people who were disappointed earlier became excited again. The neighbors informed each other, and those who were still at home quickly packed up their things and gathered. There's one more thing I want to say. Even if you follow me to the chief's place, there may be hidden people on the way. When the time comes and we kill them, I may not be able to take care of all of you. Qing Yi said to the people who gathered around. They were surrounded by children. The youngest was less than 10 years old, while the oldest was about the same age as Qinjia. There was even a child who was hugging his newborn sister. With such a group, if they were to encounter someone in hiding, they would definitely be affected. After all, those people in hiding would not show mercy just because they were children. Hearing this, everyone's heart sank, but they were not too surprised. They were mentally prepared. Since young they had encountered many things. Actually, we can send the youngest one over first. Xiao Xian said. How do we send them? Everyone looked at Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian pointed to the sky. Cha-cha. A whistle sounded. Very quickly, a figure appeared in the sky. When it flew over, Cha-cha was still holding on to a person from the drumming tribe. Its claws had already pierced through the person and he was already dead. After leaving the dead intruder behind, Cha-cha landed on the ground. Xiao Xian let the youngest children get on the eagle's back first, including those who were carrying other children. The first batch of 7 children were all under 10 years old. Xiao Xian let Cha-cha bring them over. Cha-cha knew the way, so there was no need to worry. Moreover, the intruders did not attack from the air, so the air was safer than the land. There were still 5 children left behind. Xiao Xian wanted to let Qinjia go up, but this child refused and said to wait for the next batch. Then be careful later, don't stay too far away from me. Xiao Xian said. Okay. Qinjia hugged the rattan basket and walked to Xiao Xian's side. The other 4, without exception, all gathered around Qing Yi. In their eyes, Qing Yi was much stronger than Xiao Xian, so it was better to follow him. Chapter 162. From Qinjia's house to the central region, it wasn't too far, but it wasn't too close either. The drumming tribe's territory was very large, and because of the many ponds, the people living there weren't as close together as the Yanjiao tribe. Right now, most of the tribe's warriors had already gone to various places to defend against the invaders. Naturally, there were only a few people left in the inner region, and those who were patrolling and investigating internal dangers might not be able to take care of every place. Xiao Xian walked beside a pond. Because of the moon, it wasn't dark at night, so he could see his surroundings clearly. However, under these circumstances, there were still hidden dangers that weren't easy to discover. Qing Yi led the way, his pace neither fast nor slow. He didn't stop because of the hidden dangers in the surroundings, nor did he rush. Beside the pond there was a pool of blood. Pushing aside the water plants, he could see a person lying there, no longer breathing. Looking at his clothes, he was from the drumming tribe. When Qinjia and the others saw him, their faces were filled with sorrow, but they didn't say anything. Every year, similar situations would happen, but it wasn't every year that they would suffer heavy losses. Xiao Xian looked around. With his many years of hunting experience, he could feel that someone was watching them, but he didn't know where the other party was hiding. As long as the other party made the slightest movement, Xiao Xian would be able to tell. Not only Xiao Xian, but if it were any of the Yanjiao tribe's warriors who were out hunting, most of them would be able to sense it. Since he couldn't pinpoint their location, he had to use another method. Xiao Xian activated his special ability, and under his vision he could clearly see the surrounding trees. There were a few skeletons that were clearly different from the surrounding trees, but some of them were blocked by the trees so he couldn't see them clearly, or he could only see part of the body. However, this was enough. About 30 meters away from them, there was someone hiding there. The other party hid very well, almost as if he had stopped breathing. It was as if he had blended in with the surrounding trees, making him difficult to discover. Just like what Qingyi had said, those who could sneak in without anyone noticing must have very good concealment skills. They were like hunters who were waiting for their prey to come to them at the mouth of a trap. In order to achieve their goal, they could even stand in the same place for an entire day and night, maintaining this state of concealment without eating, drinking, sleeping, or moving. Once they found an opportunity, they would launch a surprise attack in one go, and they would even not hesitate to use suicidal methods to drag their target to death. The drumming tribe's way of doing things made many other tribes wary. Once the drumming tribe was involved, they would enter a state of high alert. Every time they encountered the drumming tribe, there would be a fierce battle. Walking from Qinjia's house to here, Xiao Xian had already seen several corpses. They had been killed without a sound. In the surrounding muddy area or in the grass by the pool, there were some small crocodiles crying. They were very uneasy and anxious for their parents to come back. However, those big guys had to wait for at least one more day until the day the river rose. Everyone be careful. Xiao Xian did not directly point out where the people were hiding. He could see that Qingyi, who was walking at the front, had already noticed. After all, this was their territory. If he directly pointed out where the people were hiding in the dark, it might actually force them out. Cha-Cha had not returned yet, and there were still 5 children here. It was not easy to deal with them. As they got closer and closer to the people hiding behind the tree, Qingyi raised his hand and signaled the 4 people behind him to retreat. At the same time, Xiao Xian also pulled Qinjia, who was beside him, in another direction. Qingyi had just taken a step forward when a figure suddenly rushed out from behind the tree. His eyes were fierce and cold. It was not the emotionless coldness of the drumming tribe, but a kind of coldness that was filled with bloodlust. This was a very dangerous tribe. Xiao Xian had already blacklisted the drumming tribe. When the time came, if the Yinjiao tribe could smoothly come over and return to their homeland, they had to be on guard against the drumming tribe. The person who suddenly rushed out had fine scale-like patterns all over his body. He emitted a dangerous aura, instantly causing Qinjia and the others' hair to stand on end. The moment the other party rushed out, Xiao Xian discovered that Qingyi's arms suddenly expanded, emitting a ka-ka sound. Other than his arms, the other parts of his body also seemed to be inflated, suddenly expanding. Originally, he looked thinner than the other people of the drumming tribe, but after this short change, even his loose beast skin clothes became tight. His mouth opened, revealing 4 slightly long fangs, 2 on top and 2 on top. A low rumbling sound came from his throat. When he looked at the person hiding in the dark, his eyes were like 2 bright spots. Perhaps it was because of the moonlight, but these 2 spots were slightly brighter. When the intruder came closer and closer, Qingyi also moved. His legs stepped on the ground, meeting the intruder at high speed. The muscles on his entire arm bulged, faintly pulsating. Every muscle contained an enormous explosive force, allowing him to make the fastest attack in the shortest amount of time. Here there were no fancy techniques. The battle was more direct and simple, and there were no deceptive moves. There were only direct and decisive attacks, as well as the determination to kill the opponent. The intruder was holding a bone knife made of animal bones, but when he swung the knife down, he discovered that the knife was caught by a hand. After Qingyi held the bone knife with one hand, his other arm smashed down like a stone pillar. At such a close distance and with such strength, if he was hit, he would be severely injured or even die. The intruder wanted to dodge, but he discovered that the hand holding the knife had unknowingly clamped down on his arm, like a fierce beast biting down on its prey. Unless he broke his arm, he would not be able to escape. The intruder had the courage to break his arm, but unfortunately he did not have the time to do so. The crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard in the air. The intruder's eyes were still filled with disbelief, but very quickly the light dimmed. His body twitched and then he was no longer breathing. Qingyi threw the man with the broken skull to the side like he was throwing trash. His legs suddenly exerted force and he rushed in a direction. There was a small bush there and it did not look like a good place to hide. Qingyi was like a racing car that suddenly accelerated, whizzing past. In the blink of an eye, he was already in front of the bush. After a few bangs, the sound of bodies colliding was heard, and the sound of flesh being forcefully penetrated was heard. Immediately after, Xian saw the figure that was originally hiding behind the bush being torn in half. It was a very violent and bloody way, very much like the style of the Ji tribe. If you looked at Qing Yi's eyes now, you would discover that his eyes were not dark brown, but the same as those people with yellow-brown eyes who had a violent temper. Qing Yi was the only person in the tribe who had two colors of eyes. Normally, his eyes were black and looked harmless, but once he was in a fight they would become violent. Qing Yi's actions probably made the people lurking around realize that they had been discovered. They rushed out of their hiding places and felt that Qing Yi was not easy to deal with, so they set their sights on Xian. As long as they got rid of the older ones, it would be fine. The children were easy to deal with and they could do it at any time. The other party used their speed advantage, and when they rushed out, they even changed their positions to avoid the Ji tribe's sudden burst of speed. As long as they avoided the first move, their chances of success would be higher. However, Xian was not from the Ji tribe and Xian was not slower than the other party. Xian pulled out his white teeth knife. Ever since he left the tribe, this knife had not undergone the cleansing ceremony. The originally white blade had many red marks on it, left behind by Xian when he was crossing the river on the canoe. No matter how careful he was, he could not avoid fighting. And a normal brush would not be able to clean the knife completely. A knife that had not undergone the cleansing ceremony, but had gone through many killings, always carried a terrifying aura. The biting cold knife energy made Qinjia, who was closest to Xian, feel a chill on his forehead and back and couldn't help but shiver. Xian took a deep breath, his body crouching. Facing the people rushing over, he did not dodge but instead met them head-on. The shoulder holding the teeth knife shook, and as if an accelerator was installed in his arm, the knife became a blur as it chopped towards the people in front of him. Compared to the people of the Ji tribe, Xian did not have their inflatable transformation, but the momentum of the knife was stronger, and the power was more ferocious. The knife drew a blurry arc and with a light poochie sound, the first intruder who rushed towards Xian had his neck slit. Because the strength of the attack was too strong, the other party's head was almost chopped off. After killing one person, Xian did not stop. Like a leopard on the hunt, he dodged the other person's attack. As he passed by, he used the handle of his knife to hit the other person's arm. The other party's knife did not touch Xian, and instead heavily chopped into the muddy pool at Xian's feet. The powerful knife chopped into the muddy pool, like a small bomb exploding in the muddy pool. The muddy water splashed everywhere, like an earth-colored firework, exploding with a bang. For a moment, Qinjia could not see the situation behind the splashing muddy water, but when the muddy water fell again, the battle behind had already ended. The person standing beside the muddy pool was still holding a black bone knife in his hand, maintaining his chopping posture. The scale-like totemic patterns on his face gradually disappeared, and his eyes stared straight at his chest. There was a bloody hole. Blood continuously flowed out, dyeing the muddy water red. This was the first time Xian had killed someone, but he was surprisingly calm. He did not know if it was because this body had affected his thinking, or if he was used to the cruel rules of this world, or if he was born cold-blooded. Swinging his arm to shake off the blood on his knife, Xian scanned his surroundings. There were still people coming this way, coming from the outside. He did not know if they were trying to force their way in or if they were trying to sneak in. No matter what, this was not a place to stay for long. He had to hurry and send the children to the chief. A shadow flashed across the sky. Xian was delighted. If he could send the 5 children over now, things would be much easier. Chapter 163. After Cha successfully sent the children to the chief's side, it rushed towards Xian's side. However, this time it was attacked from the ground. There were always people hiding in the forest throwing sharp spears and stone knives at it. Occasionally, arrows with stone arrowheads would shoot out from behind a tree or from a pile of thick grass. This made it very annoyed as it was still unable to ignore these attacks. If it was hit, it would still be injured. While dodging, Cha headed towards Xian's side. Xian's side also noticed Cha's predicament. If those people who were hiding only attacked and did not directly attack, it would not be easy to catch them. Xian still had to take care of the children here, so it was impossible for him to deal with those who attacked Cha. How about we don't let Cha come down? It's not far from the chief's side. Qinjia said. Yes, don't let it come down. Another person also said. In the past they did not like birds because some water birds were a threat to the little treasure fish. Once they found a bird that was slightly bigger, the tribe's warriors would throw spears or arrows into the air to shoot the birds down. However, if the birds flew higher, it would be difficult for them to shoot accurately. Every time they would choose to attack the birds when they were close to the ground. That way the birds would be restricted by the surrounding terrain and would be easy to hit. Qingyi was currently looking for the people who attacked Cha-Cha, but in terms of speed it was really difficult for Qingyi to catch them. Xiaoxian also knew that it was not good for Cha-Cha to come down now, but looking at the situation, if they went over on land, at least 2 of the 5 children would be injured or even die. After thinking for a while, Xiaoxian said, "I have an idea." "Really? What idea?" Qinjia asked. "If Cha-Cha could bring them over, it would save them a lot of trouble. They would only be a burden if they stayed here. There's no need for Cha-Cha to come down, I will let you safely get on Cha-Cha's back. Don't worry," Xiaoxian said. Qinjia hugged the rattan basket tightly and nodded his head vigorously, "Yes." Seeing that Xiaoxian was not only protecting them, but also trying his best to solve the problem, Qinjia was extremely touched. He had misunderstood Xiaoxian before, but at this time Xiaoxian was actually so proactive in helping them. Sure enough, Xiaoxian was just like what his father said. Xiaoxian was really a good person. The Yanjiao tribe Xiaoxian belonged to must also be good people. Not only Qinjia but the other 4 children also had the same thoughts. They felt that Xiaoxian was a good person, and they also believed in Xiaoxian. "Tie your rattan baskets tightly to your bodies," Xiaoxian said. "I'm done. When you're on Cha-Cha's back you must hold on tight. Don't let yourself fall off," Xiaoxian said again. "Got it, we'll definitely do it." "That's good." Xiaoxian chopped the spear thrown at him to one side, while his other hand reached out to Qinjia, who was closest to him. Then Qinjia felt himself being picked up by a strong hand along with the basket like a little chick. "Are you ready?" Xiaoxian asked. Yes. Qinjia swallowed his saliva. He had a bad premonition. In the next moment Qinjia was thrown into the air. His body quickly left the ground as if he was weightless and flew into the sky. The originally tall tree next to him shrunk in the blink of an eye. Previously he could only see the top of the tree when he looked up, but now he could see a large area when he lowered his head. As a member of the drumming tribe who was used to living on wet land and in water-bathing areas, he had a natural fear of the sky. They could explode with powerful fighting strength on land, and could smoothly chase after prey in the water. But the sky? Last time, Qinjia was in a desperate situation and was pulled up by Xiaoxian from the bottom of the river. At that time he didn't pay attention to the situation below, nor did he think that something was wrong. Moreover, at that time he only stared at the riverbank, which was completely different from what he felt now. Compared to the previous batch, Qinjia didn't experience the stage of safely flying, and was directly thrown out. Looking at the ground getting farther and farther away, Qinjia felt a sense of dizziness. Completely out of conditioned reflex, he opened his mouth and shouted. "Ah!" Qinjia, who had always thought of himself as incomparably brave, was actually frightened to the point of crying out, and almost wet himself. His cry was so miserable. The people of the Yanjiao tribe compared to other tribes were much stronger. In the past, Xiaoxian thought that people in this world were all like this. But after coming to the drumming tribe and seeing the people of the drumming tribe, he realized that this wasn't the case. Therefore, the people of the drumming tribe, who always thought that they were strong and powerful, would never have thought that Xiaoxian would casually throw Qinjia and the basket of water moonstones into the air. When Cha-Cha was young, he had played a similar game with Cha-Cha. The difference was that this time, it wasn't stones or animal skin bags that were thrown out, but people. Of course, to Cha-Cha, there wasn't much of a difference between the two games. The only difference was that this time, it used its back to catch them and not its claws. At first, Qinjia didn't react. After landing on Cha-Cha's back, he didn't even have time to grab onto Cha-Cha's feathers before he rolled down from Cha-Cha's back. When Cha-Cha caught him again, he remembered that Xiaoxian had told them to hold on tightly to the bird's back. In order to not fall to his death, Qinjia quickly grabbed onto Cha-Cha's feathers. Because he used too much strength, he almost pulled out all the feathers. Cha-Cha was so angry that it let out a loud cry, thinking that when the time came, it would catch this group of people and throw them around for fun. Seeing that Qinjia was safely on Cha-Cha's back, Xiaoxian tilted his head and looked at the other 4 children. The 4 people who were standing in the same place with sluggish expressions noticed Xiaoxian's gaze and simultaneously took a step back. "Either you get killed or come here," Xiaoxian said. The 4 of them were still somewhat hesitant. "Can you guys be more cowardly than Qinjia?" Xiaoxian said provokingly. Finally, one of the children clenched his teeth and braced himself as he walked towards Xiaoxian. Thus, the second person who screamed was heard. Then a third, a fourth until the fifth child was thrown into the air by Xiao Xian and caught by Cha-Cha. Only then was this matter considered a complete success. As long as it was a success, it didn't matter how it was done. After the 5 children were taken away by Cha-Cha, Xiao Xian and Qing Yi's burden was greatly reduced. While heading towards the chief's side, they also cleaned up the hidden people. Along the way they met a group of drumming tribe warriors who were responsible for finding and cleaning up the hidden people. After Qing Yi told them about what he saw, they separated. Qing Yi brought Xiao Xian to the core area of the drumming tribe, which was also the place Xiao Xian went to on his first day here. There were already quite a few people brought here, most of them were young children and old people. After completing this task, Qing Yi followed another group to patrol the tribe, continuing to clean up the hidden enemies. Xiao Xian was called over by the shaman. After all, Xiao Xian wasn't a member of the drumming tribe, and the shaman had the intention of having a good relationship with the Yanjiao tribe, so he couldn't let Xiao Xian participate in the battle. Xiao Xian had already helped enough. This was a battle that belonged to the drumming tribe, so there was no need to involve others. Since he couldn't participate in the battle, Xiao Xian helped treat the injured. He still had some prepared medicine in his animal skin bag, which he boiled for the injured to drink. For this, the people of the drumming tribe were very grateful to Xiao Xian. The shaman also promised that if the Yanjiao tribe needed help one day, they would do their best to help. This was what Xiao Xian wanted. Helping the drumming tribe was also helping the Yanjiao tribe. With the drumming tribe here, the Yanjiao tribe would have an easier time coming over. This battle, from the night when the 2 moons overlapped, to the next day when the moon disappeared and the sun reappeared, it still didn't stop. Unlike the Yanjiao people who were relaxed today, the people of the drumming tribe were still fighting hard. There were many corpses in the tribe, some from the drumming tribe and some from the drumming tribe. Especially in the outer area, many pools were dyed red. Broken limbs and pieces of flesh could be seen everywhere. Fortunately, the drumming tribe had the advantage in numbers, and this was their own territory, so they were well prepared and had the upper hand. A day passed and the sun set. The battle gradually cooled down. In the sky, the 2 moons were separating. In the woods and around the pools, there were still some people of the drumming tribe. They were getting more and more anxious and wanted to run, but they were blocked by the people outside. This time, the drumming tribe was determined to keep these people here to comfort their comrades who had died in this battle. Xiao Xian, who had just helped carry the injured, came out of the house and saw the shaman standing in the open space, looking in a direction in a daze. That was the direction of the river. And the shaman's face gradually showed a trace of a smile. At the same time, Xiao Xian felt the ground under his feet shake, and the pool around him rippled. The shaking became more and more violent, and the familiar sound of thousands of horses galloping came from afar. The air humidity increased and the water vapor increased. The wind began to blow fiercely as if it was going to blow off the roof. Some of the wooden planks in the house were swept away, but no one cared about that. Everyone in the drumming tribe had a happy expression on their faces. Those emotionless eyes were now shining with tears. The rumbling sound, the violent shaking of the ground, and the water vapor in the air all meant that the disappeared river was about to rise again. Wu, the return of the kings of the river, announced the arrival of changes. The creatures that left during the rainy season all came back with the river. When the kings of the river swam deeper into the river, everything gradually calmed down. A huge claw stepped on the riverbank, and a huge body that was over 10 meters long emerged from the water. A rumbling sound came from its big mouth like rolling thunder. At the same time, it looked around, probably sensing the abnormal factors in the surrounding environment. Soon, it seemed to have found something that made it very angry. A roar came from the river bank, spreading far away. Around it, there were many of its companions. Like it, its huge body quickly entered the tributary. In the tributary that was expanding due to the rise of the river, a group of big guys was quickly approaching the tribe. They were responsible for cleaning up the battlefield. Chapter 164. The 2 moons in the sky were separating, and the earth was still covered with a layer of silver light at night. A figure staggered out from the forest. Probably because his head was hit, half of his face was stained with blood. He felt his vision was a little blurry. Blood flowed into his eyes, but he didn't wipe it away. His head hurt, but he didn't care. What did they come here for? That's right, they came to kill people. Kill the people of the drumming tribe, and then steal their water moon stones. Sneak and kill, steal, what else was there? He thought as he walked. There were many small puddles of different depths on the ground. The sound of his feet stepping into the puddles was very clear, and the splashing muddy water reflected the moonlight. Until he walked to the side of a river, his remaining consciousness made him stop before he fell into the river. Looking at the river in front of him, he gradually remembered some things he was told before invading the drumming tribe. When the river rises, you have to evacuate quickly. Once the river rises, you can't get close to any ponds or rivers in the drumming tribe. Remember, the river in front of him was less than 10 meters wide. It wasn't a big river in this area, at most a tributary of the tributaries. However, the river level did rise. When the river rises, you can't get close to ponds or rivers. Can't get close. Thinking of this, he suddenly quivered and quickly stepped back. However, he only took a step back when a figure quickly rushed out from the river. A huge mouth came biting towards him. The mouth was covered in hard scales, and the huge jaw had thick, cone-shaped teeth that made people shudder. There seemed to be some meat residue between the teeth, and there was also the smell of blood that had not yet dissipated. This was the last thing he saw. The next second he was bitten and dragged into the water. The conical teeth instantly pierced his internal organs. Before he was dragged into the water, he was already bitten to death. In the river there were other crocodiles gathering here. They bit the food, rolled around, cut the food into pieces and then swallowed it clean. In the drumming tribe, similar things happened in many places. Those who stayed in the drumming tribe were lucky enough to escape with their lives, but those who ran slower would be killed by the drumming tribe and the adult crocodiles. In the end, they would become the crocodiles' food. The corpses left behind from the previous battle were gradually decreasing. However, the ones who were decreasing were the people of the drumming tribe. These outsiders had become food for the returning crocodiles. The small crocodiles that had been crying for a few days now stopped. Some even crawled into the water and went to other places to clean up the trash with the big crocodiles. To the drumming tribe, these crocodiles were treasured fish, but to the others they were a nightmare. Xiaoxian stood there and watched the crocodiles pass by. These crocodiles that came back from the river, the big ones were more than 10 meters tall, and the small ones were no less than 3 meters. Some swam to other places in the river and some walked directly through the wetland. Although their walking speed was not fast, they looked murderous. Their eyes were similar to those of the drumming tribe. When these crocodiles that had disappeared for a while returned, the people of the drumming tribe were very excited. This meant that this year's war would end. In the drumming tribe's territory, the best guards were actually these crocodiles. These crocodiles wouldn't harm the people of the drumming tribe. Even if they were no longer breathing, they wouldn't bite them. However, the other tribes didn't have such good treatment. They were completely treated as food and eaten in a very cruel way. As an outsider, Xiaoxian naturally did not dare to run around at this time. He stood together with the people of the drumming tribe. A few steps away, the shaman of the drumming tribe stood. A crocodile that was more than 15 meters long passed by Xiaoxian. It probably noticed that Xiaoxian was different, so it approached and opened its mouth towards Xiaoxian. A low growl came from its throat. It was suspecting Xiaoxian's identity. Its cold eyes were filled with killing intent, as if it would mercilessly bite him in the next moment. However, after the shaman said a few words that Xiaoxian did not understand, the crocodile left. "Take this." The shaman handed Xiaoxian a bone plate with the drumming tribe's totem pattern on it. Xiaoxian took it. With this, no matter where he went, the crocodiles would not treat him as an enemy. Moreover, this bone plate was only in the hands of the shaman. It was made temporarily, unlike the chief's plate, which could not be faked. When the moon disappeared and the sun came out, there were no longer any living invaders in the drumming tribe's territory. Xiaoxian brought Qinjia back. Along the way they could see many large and small crocodiles in the pool. They were rolling around in the pool, tearing apart people whose faces could no longer be seen. The pool had already been dyed red with blood. However, whether it was Qinjia or the other children of the tribe, even the children who were only 2 or 3 years old, they were not surprised at all. Some were even cheering at the side. It was not that they were innately cold, but that they were already used to it. The closer they got to home, the faster Qinjia's steps became. He did not even care about the water moonstones. Xiaoxian helped him carry the rattan basket, but he did not care much. Right now, he just wanted to see if his father and mother had returned home safely. "Mother!" Qinjia shouted and quickly ran over. Xiaoxian looked over. Ping was standing in the house looking out of the window. "Are you okay?" Ping ran out and looked at Qinjia, then looked at Xiaoxian. No matter if it was Qinjia or Xiaoxian, there were bloodstains on their bodies. However, this was not their blood. After checking that there were no injuries, Ping happily said, "Quickly go in, I'll prepare something to eat." Since Ping was so happy, it was obvious that Fu Shi was also fine. Fu Shi was resting in the house. Although there were many injuries on his body, it was enough to keep his life. After seeing the rattan basket that Xiao Xian carried over, Fu Shi and his wife could not suppress the joy on their faces. Their mouths split open and that big mouth looked quite scary. If not for this period of time Xiao Xian had a better understanding of them, he would definitely have the same thought as the other tribesmen. The drumming tribe was really scary. Letting the family of 3 interact more, Xiao Xian came out to look around. He heard the crocodile cry, but it was not because it was afraid. The sound it made was different from before. Next to the pond in front of Qinjia's house, an 8-meter-long crocodile walked over and climbed into the pond. Its eyes were yellowish-brown, and when it looked at people it was always cold, making people feel cold. After it entered the pond, it picked up the small crocodile and swam from one side of the pond to the other. Those cone-shaped teeth that could easily tear a person's arm off, when it held the small crocodile in its mouth, it did not have any killing power. Instead, it protected the small crocodile. This was also an animal that knew how to protect its young. Previously, the person who was trapped by Xiao Xian's trap and had his neck broken by Qing Yi had his corpse taken away. He was not left here to be fed to the crocodiles. Xiao Xian knew that the person's identity was definitely special, and he was not a member of the drumming tribe. In the drumming tribe, people and crocodiles lived in harmony. The real situation was like this, without much intimacy, but they would not harm each other. The invaders were their common enemy. What? Xiao Xian was looking at the crocodiles when he heard Ping cry out in surprise. What's wrong? Xiao Xian walked into the house and asked. Sai, I just heard that someone's water moonstone was stolen. Ping said. Some people in the tribe were busy fighting because of the drumming tribe's invasion and did not pay close attention. Now that everything was over, they cleaned up the water moonstones in the rattan basket. It was clearly wrapped in the animal skin bag, but when they opened it again they found that it was missing a lot. The animal skin bag was not broken, and the rattan basket was not damaged. Only the water moonstones were missing. It must be a thief. Only they have that ability. Fu Shi said hatefully. After hearing this, Ping hurriedly opened the rattan basket to check. Her family's harvest this year was not small. If it was stolen it would be a great loss. Most of the time the rattan basket was carried by Qinjia. When Qinjia was not looking it was Xiao Xian who was looking. Good, it's not lost. After checking, Ping let out a sigh of relief. These water moonstones were what they relied on for the next year. Oh right. Ping originally wanted to wrap the water moonstones again, but when she saw Xiao Xian next to her, she remembered. She took out some water moonstones from the rattan basket and put them into another animal skin bag. Then she handed it to Xiao Xian. Thank you, Xiao Xian. Many people in the drumming tribe were not good with words. Fu Shi also seemed to want to say something, but in the end he could only scratch his head and swallow his words. He did not know how to thank Xiao Xian, but when he thought of the advice given by the other tribes during the trade, he tried to show the most sincere smile. Thus, when he looked at Xiao Xian, his mouth was wide open. Xiao Xian, retracting his gaze from the other side, Xiao Xian pushed the animal skin bag. I don't need so much. Xiao Xian found that Ping took out at least 1/5 of the water moonstones. Don't look down on this 1/5, this was money that could be exchanged for a lot of things. Take it. Ping stuffed the animal skin bag into Xiao Xian's hands and said, after this matter is over we will start the trade. When the time comes you can go out with Fu Shi, you will need it. It's your first time out so there are a lot of things you don't understand. Seeing that he could not refuse, Xiao Xian took the animal skin bag. Moreover, if he went out to trade he would need it. Where do we usually go to trade? Other tribes? Xiao Xian asked. For small trades, sometimes we go to the Luo tribe, sometimes to the Pu tribe and other tribes. However, for big trades we have to go to the trading ground. Ping explained. Fu Shi understood this better. Every time their family went out to trade he was the one in charge. The closest tribe to our tribe is the Pu tribe. This time we will most likely go there. The people of the Pu tribe have a lot of good things in their hands. Stones, pottery, and some medicine. They are all very good things. Xiao Xian remembered Fu Shi's words in his heart. These were all things he needed to understand. Because in the ancestors' animal skin roll, there was no mention of the Pu tribe. Chapter 165. After the end of the war, the drumming tribe returned to normal. The tribe held a ceremony for the dead warriors, but Xiao Xian wasn't from the drumming tribe and couldn't participate in the ceremony, so he didn't see the fire seed of the drumming tribe. That day he stayed at Qinjia's house and felt the energy of the fire seed. It was different from the energy of the Yanjiao tribe's fire seed. This energy was much stronger. This was probably what the shaman said about the difference between a complete totem and an incomplete totem. The energy of the Yinjiao tribe's fire seed gave people a warm feeling, but the drumming tribe's fire seed gave people a slightly cool feeling. It wasn't cold, but it was slightly cooler than the Yinjiao tribe's fire seed. Even though he was curious about the drumming tribe's fire seed, Xiao Xian couldn't go and see it. Only when he talked with Fu Shi and the others did he know that their fire pit was actually a waterhole. The bodies of the dead warriors would also be sent to that waterhole. Hearing this, it was a very magical thing. If there was a chance, Xiao Xian really wanted to see the drumming tribe's fire pit with his own eyes. After the funeral ceremony, the tribe became lively again. Everyone was looking forward to the next trade, just like rich people who had just earned a large sum of money and were thinking about how to spend it. The drumming tribe's healing ability was slightly slower than the Yinjiao tribe's, but overall it wasn't bad. When the totem patterns covered their whole body, it was like a layer of scales covering them, giving them a certain amount of protection. The drumming tribe also knew that because of this their attitude towards Xiao Xian was very warm. When they heard that Xiao Xian was going to go out with the trading team, they all imparted their experiences to Xiao Xian, telling him how to choose, how to trade, what the price of each item was, etc. The young ladies of the drumming tribe, who looked cold but were actually passionate, often ran to Xiao Xian's side and showed their brightest smiles. Every time he faced this kind of enthusiasm, Xiao Xian's face froze. On the other hand, the men of the drumming tribe were all infatuated with the passionate girls. Sure enough, different tribes had different aesthetic standards. Due to the return of a large number of adult crocodiles, the Cha-Cha viewed the wetlands as a dangerous place. If they could land on a tree, they would definitely not land on the ground. Finally, the day of the trading team's departure arrived. Xiao Xian took the water moonstone that Ping gave him and left with Cha-Cha. Xiao Xian, you must come to our tribe to play again. Ping said to Xiao Xian. All right, I'll definitely come back. The drumming tribe and the Pu tribe were not close. According to Xiao Xian's understanding, the drumming tribe was located in a remote area. The distribution of tribes here was relatively sparse. Just look at the territory of the drumming tribe. Towards the Pu tribe they did not walk step by step on the ground but through the water. On the outskirts of the drumming tribe, there was a river that was more than 10 meters wide. Through this river the people of the drumming tribe could reach the Pu tribe. The drumming tribe did not have boats. They could make bamboo rafts and wooden rafts. On the few tributaries here, bamboo rafts and wooden rafts could successfully float. However, the people of the drumming tribe did not use them because they had better boats. One after another, crocodiles hung on the water surface. Some only revealed half of their heads, only their eyes and noses could be seen. The crocodiles often hid in the water like this to maintain their concealment. But there were also some that revealed more of their heads. You could clearly see the scales and patterns on their backs. As the leader of the trading team, after receiving the shaman's blessing, Qing Yi jumped into the river and landed on the back of a crocodile. The crocodiles lined up together like a pontoon, allowing Qing Yi to walk freely on them. The others followed Qing Yi and jumped into the river one by one, then stood on the backs of the crocodiles. Fu Shi carried an empty rattan basket on his back and touched the animal skin bag with the water moonstones. He said to Xiao Xian, "Let's go." Xiao Xian did not let Cha-Cha lead the way. He wanted to be with the people of the drumming tribe and learn more about the Pu tribe. Fu Shi said a lot of things that were not specific. Xiao Xian could learn more from the conversations of the others. The drumming tribe had thousands of people. Not everyone would participate in this trade. Some temporarily did not need to buy anything. Some asked others to help them bring something back, and some waited for their companions to bring something back. Then they would use the water moonstones to exchange for it. After counting the people in the trading team, Qing Yi waved his hand, "Let's go." The crocodiles floating on the water swung their tails and began to move forward along the river. Just as they started moving, Xiao Xian heard a cry from behind. Turning his head to look, he saw a crocodile floating on the river where the sending-off team was. Beside it, there was a small crocodile with dark brown eyes. Many people could not hear its cry, so when Xiao Xian turned his head to look, Fu Shi was puzzled. After seeing the small crocodile, Fu Shi grinned, "It's sending us off." Turning his head back, Xiao Xian signaled to Cha-Cha in the air to follow. A trading team of more than 200 people, accompanied by more than 100 crocodiles. Although this team did not look like a lot, it was very strange. After all, these crocodiles were not real boats. They would not always stay above the water surface. Sometimes they would even sink a little. The people standing on their backs would have their legs in the water. However, the people of the drumming tribe did not feel uncomfortable. After all, they were also close to the water. Xiao Xian looked at the duckweeds on the water surface. These green plants hid the figures under the water. If one looked at the trading team from the land, it would be like a boat moving on its own. Only the ripples on the water would tell others that there were other creatures under the water. There were other fish in the river, even some dangerous ones. However, with this group of crocodiles, these fish all retreated and ran away. Sometimes they could even see some aquatic animals as well as other animals playing in the water. Those that should be avoided were avoided, and those that did not need to be avoided were directly passed. These animals would naturally avoid them. Feeling a little itchy on his feet, Xiao Xian moved the spear in his hand. With a splash, a finger-long worm was lifted up by the spearhead. It was a worm with a mouth like a suction cup. Its body was reddish-brown with some fine earthy yellow patterns. Its stomach was slightly bulging. "Be careful, these worms suck blood," Fu Shi, who was standing in front, said. Xiao Xian acted as soon as he sensed it. This worm did not suck Xiao Xian's blood, but he did not know who in the group it belonged to. It seemed that in the river there were not many big threats but many small troubles. The river passed through a wetland and came to a mountain ridge. It passed by many towering mountains. For the drumming tribe, these mountains were high enough, but in Xiao Xian's eyes, these mountains were far from the hunting ground and the mountain range near Eagle Mountain. Half a day later, Xiao Xian's vision darkened. The group passed through a narrow channel between two cliffs. Here the cliffs on both sides blocked most of the light. Only a narrow opening at the top allowed them to see the sky. This narrow channel was especially quiet. The sound of the crocodile's tail swishing could be heard clearly. "After this we'll reach it," Fu Shi said. The light in front of them was getting closer. When the group came out of the narrow channel, what they saw was completely different from before. In their field of vision there were large lotus leaves. "From here on, it's the Pu tribe's territory," Fu Shi said. Xiao Xian was about to ask more when he sensed that there was something in the water quickly approaching them. It stopped when it reached the edge of the lotus leaves. The large lotus leaves covered the figure underwater. "Gua!" A frog-like croak was heard. Xiao Xian reflexively took out his knife and was on guard. Whoosh! A figure broke out of the water, but it did not run directly to the drumming tribe's trading team. Instead, it stood on a lotus leaf the size of a small bed. "We're a little late," the person standing on the lotus leaf said to Qing Yi, who was in front of the trading team. Chapter 166. Xiao Xian looked at the man on the lotus leaf. When he heard the croak, he thought of the long-tailed frogs that appeared at the tribe's shore during the rainy season. That was why he immediately pulled out his knife. The man on the lotus leaf was the Pu tribe's border patrol. He was familiar with the drumming tribe's people who often came here to trade. He was also familiar with Qing Yi. Hearing the other party's words, Qing Yi helplessly said, "The trouble this time is bigger." Other than the drumming tribe's people, there were also people from other tribes involved, but Qing Yi didn't say this. He wouldn't easily tell others. The man on the lotus leaf nodded. He also received the news that the invaders came from the drumming tribe. Qing Yi and the others needed more time to recuperate after the battle, so they naturally came later. His gaze swept over the drumming tribe's team, stopping on Xiao Xian. Who is he? The drumming tribe's people's characteristics were very obvious. He didn't need to look too much to recognize the person who was obviously different from the others. A guest from the drumming tribe, from the Yanjiao tribe. His name is Xiao Xian. Qing Yi introduced. The person standing on the lotus leaf narrowed his eyes and scanned Xiao Xian's body, as if trying to determine if the stranger was a threat. As for the Yanjiao tribe, it was probably an unknown small tribe. There were too many small tribes in this world, so they didn't need to remember them one by one. However, for a guest from the drumming tribe, they still had to give some face. After all, the drumming tribe's people were very rich. Especially after the 2 moons, it was the harvest season for the drumming tribe. There were baskets of water moonstones. For such a wealthy trader, the Pu tribe welcomed him very much. "Let's go, everyone has been waiting for a long time." The man on the lotus leaf jumped back a few steps to another lotus leaf. His cheeks puffed up like a frog, making a croak sound. Not long after the sound was made, Xiao Xian felt something moving under the water. Standing in the water, he could feel the waves. At the same time, in front of the drumming tribe's trading team, which was originally full of lotus leaves and couldn't see anything else, now those tall lotus leaves were tilted to both sides, revealing a waterway in the middle. "Let's go." Qing Yi led the crocodile forward along the waterway. The other people in the trading team followed suit. The lotus leaves here were very large. The stems of the lotus leaves, which were thicker than a person's thigh, were exposed above the water. The green stems of the lotus leaves were covered with thorns. If someone tried to force their way through, the thorns on the stems of the lotus leaves would cut off their flesh. Unlike the muddy ponds of the drumming tribe, the river here was clearer, but the surface of the water was covered with duckweed, making it difficult to see the situation under the water. When the crocodile swam past, the duckweed would be pushed away by the waves. When the waves rippled, Xiao Xian could see many green frogs hiding in the duckweed under the lotus leaves. Those who were more timid would run away immediately, kicking the water surface vigorously and swimming away in the standard frog style. As for the braver ones, they remained in their original positions with half of their heads exposed. Their two round eyes stared at the people passing through the waterway. Their horizontal pupils were like slits, but they did not have the coldness of a crocodile. Instead, they gave people the feeling that they were smiling. From time to time there would be frog calls either near or far. They are the people of the Pu tribe. The one who talked to Qingyi is called Pu Yi. He is in charge of the border patrol and defense of the Pu tribe. Fu Shi said to Xiao Xian. Pu Yi jumped on a lotus leaf not far away. He wasn't wearing any beast skin clothes, so the drawings on his body were exposed. They weren't totem patterns but patterns drawn with a special pigment. They wouldn't be washed off by water. At the same time, when Pu Yi and Qingyi were talking, Xiao Xian also noticed that Pu Yi had some drawings around his eyes. These were the preferences of the Pu tribe. People with different preferences would draw different patterns around their eyes. This was the custom of the Pu tribe, passed down from their ancestors. Pu Yi jumped from one lotus leaf to another. Sometimes because of his jump, the dew on the lotus leaf would flow down with the tilt of the lotus leaf, falling into the water and making a dripping sound. Under the water there were many warriors like Pu Yi who were in charge of border patrol. They pulled the lotus leaves to both sides, opening up a waterway. No matter if it was the people of the Pu tribe or the drumming tribe, they were all excellent swimmers. Following the waterway opened up by the Pu tribe, the trading team moved forward. As they continued to move forward, Xiao Xian could feel the temperature gradually rising. There was no longer the cold of the mountains, but it became warm and humid. If you stood at a high place you could see everything green. Green lotus leaves, green duckweed, and dense green forests on both sides of the river. The frog calls around them became more and more frequent, proving that there were more and more frogs around. Fortunately, Xiao Xian did not find any long-tailed giant frogs in the river. The totem of the Pu tribe was a frog. This also proved that they had a close relationship with frogs. Here, anyone who killed frogs for no reason would be punished by the Pu tribe. The Cha-Cha did not enter the territory of the Pu tribe. Instead, they wandered around the border. Without the permission of the Pu tribe, they would be attacked as invaders. The people of the Pu tribe were good at using poison. Following the waterway for a while, Xiao Xian heard people cheering. They are here. Quick! The people of the drumming tribe are here. Father, the trading team is here. Quickly take out the things. Some of the voices came from the shore, while others came from the lotus leaves above. Looking from the water surface, on the big umbrella-like lotus leaves, one could see a moving shadow. You are still very popular. Xiao Xian said to Fu Shi. Of course we often come to trade with them. We all know each other and have a good relationship. Ah. Fu Shi rarely heard people say that his tribe was popular. He felt very happy. Only Qingyi and a few others' faces twitched. Of course they were popular. They were the important customers of the Pu tribe. Without the drumming tribe, most of the people of the Pu tribe would immediately live in poverty. Following the open waterway, the team turned a corner. In front of them was the riverbank. On the riverbank, there were already many people of the Pu tribe waiting. Big and small, young and old, each and every one of them was smiling, until their mouths cracked. Different from the fierce, bloody mouth of the drumming tribe, although the people of the Pu tribe had big mouths, many of them had slightly upturned mouths. Coupled with the shape of their jaws, they did not look as stiff as the people of the drumming tribe. They gave people a feeling that they were much more enthusiastic. In addition to their mouths, the people of the Pu tribe generally had big eyes. Coupled with their unique customs, everyone's eyes were painted with patterns. According to the warriors of the drumming tribe who often came out to trade, they could judge the character of the people of the Pu tribe based on those patterns. And the experienced old warriors gave Xiao Xian advice. Stay away from those with very colorful patterns. Those people were very dangerous. Just like some colorful frogs, the more colorful they were, the more likely they were poisonous. Ah, you finally came. A middle-aged man walked forward a few steps and greeted Qingyi and a few others. Is everything ready? Qin Yi stepped onto the shore and walked with the man towards the Pu tribe. It's been ready for a long time. We've been waiting for 2 days. Xiao Xian followed Fu Shi and a few others to the shore. As for the crocodiles used as boats, they would rest in the surrounding river. The people of the Pu tribe would take care of them. An auntie wearing an animal skin coat, carrying a large wooden plate, walked over with a smile. Welcome to the Pu tribe. Here, freshly roasted. Xiao Xian looked around. There was a large plate of roasted insects. Every one of them died with their eyes wide open. Xiao Xian. Really enthusiastic. Fu Shi and the others were already used to it. They reached into the wooden plate and grabbed a handful of things to eat. Seeing that Xiao Xian didn't move, Fu Shi and a few others recommended, Xiao Xian, the Pu tribe's roasted things are not bad. You can try it. Once you leave, it will be hard to eat it again. Xiao Xian stared at the insects that died with their eyes wide open for a few seconds. He reached out his hand to grab one that looked like it still had all 4 limbs. But he didn't expect the auntie to be so enthusiastic. She directly grabbed a handful and stuffed it into Xiao Xian's hand. Xiao Xian. Thank you. Although it looked terrible, the taste was just like what Fu Shi said. It was good to eat if you ignored the appearance. In the Pu tribe's village, the houses in the residential area were not big. They were made with branches and leaves. Some were in an oval shape with an opening on the side. Some were in a large triangular shape. There was no fixed shape. It looked very artistic. It wasn't that they didn't have the ability to build bigger and stronger houses. It was just that their habits and preferences made them more inclined towards this kind of building style. At noon, the sun was too strong. Some people even folded lotus leaves and used them as umbrellas. Because there was still Cha-Cha's matter, Qin Yi let the others trade first. He brought Xiao Xian to the Pu tribe's chief. The Pu tribe's shaman often stayed in his cave and rarely came out. Every time the drumming tribe people came to the Pu tribe, they would see the Pu tribe's chief, Guanghu. The place where Guanghu lived was in the central area of the Pu tribe. Because the people here lived more densely, they didn't have to walk too far to reach Guanghu's house. It was a pointed wooden house with a roof made of grass and leaves. The door was open and the person at the door indicated that they could go in. After entering the house, the first thing Xiao Xian saw was a lump of meat sitting in the front. That was the Pu tribe's chief, Guanghu. Guanghu's eyebrows were protruding like 2 horns. Around his eyes were some yellowish green and black stripes. Compared to the other people in the Yanjiao tribe, Guanghu's appearance was more ferocious. Because his body was slightly bigger, he looked like a meat dumpling. It was very oppressive. At this moment, Guanghu was sitting there. His thick and fat hands were holding an unknown animal and eating. Seeing Xiao Xian come in, Guanghu's eyes narrowed. He looked at Xiao Xian and his mouth didn't stop eating. You are from the Yanjiao tribe? Guanghu asked. Indeed. Yanjiao tribe, I seem to have heard of it, Guanghu said. Chapter 167. Hearing Guanghu say that he had some impression of the Yanjiao tribe, Xiao Xian was happy, but the next moment Guanghu said, if I remember correctly, your totem is a fish, right? Xiao Xian was silent for a few seconds, then handed over the stone card the shaman gave him. This is our tribe's totem. I have come with the goodwill of the Yanjiao tribe. I am very happy to meet you. Guanghu didn't care. He took the stone card with the totem pattern drawn on it from Xiao Xian and looked at it. He didn't have any impression of it, so he handed the stone card back. He smiled so much that his chin folded into several layers. He said to Xiao Xian, I still believe in the guests of the drumming tribe. Xiao Xian told Guanghu the purpose of his visit, and told him about the Cha-Cha that was staying at the border of the Pu tribe. Unfortunately, although Guanghu looked more amiable than the chief of the drumming tribe, he refused immediately. The bird you mentioned just now, I don't want it to enter this territory. In the past, very few large birds came here, and we don't have a good impression of birds. Many aquatic animals didn't like birds that came from the sky. Xiao Xian knew this, and he could also see that Guanghu didn't care about him. It was only because of Qin Yi that he said a few words. Otherwise, he wouldn't even bother to look at Xiao Xian. While he was talking to Xiao Xian, Guanghu had already looked at the food on the side a few times. After the conversation, Xiao Xian said goodbye and left. Before he entered the Pu tribe, he had told the Cha-Cha that if it heard the whistle for permission, it should come over. If it heard the whistle for refusal, it could move freely outside. Maybe the Cha-Cha was happy to play outside, but there were more restrictions in the tribe. After leaving Guanghu's house, Qin Yi said apologetically, I didn't help. It's okay, the cha-cha is more free outside, wait for me to go out and call it. As for Guangho's attitude, Xiao Xian didn't think too much about it. He didn't want to get anything from the Pu tribe, he just wanted to see more of the tribes other than the Yanjiao tribe. However, why hadn't the drumming tribe and the Pu tribe heard of the name Yanjiao tribe? According to the records and words left behind by the ancestors, it could be seen that the ancestors were still very proud. They were also very proud of the former Flaming Horns tribe, which showed that the Flaming Horns tribe was not a small border group in the past. Perhaps it was because too much time had passed that everything had changed? After leaving Guangho's place, Xiao Xian parted ways with Qing Yi. Qing Yi needed to go shopping, and the chief and shamanist gave him a list of things he needed to buy. See Ho, the Yong tribe, the tribe, Yen Ho-Hos, Ho. Originally, Xiao Xian thought that the Pu tribe and the drumming tribe's trade fair would be like a market, but now it seemed that it wasn't. They didn't place their items in one place. The Pu tribe people only placed their items outside their houses, so if they saw something placed outside their houses, it would be used for trade. If they liked it, they would go and buy it. Here there was no unified currency, they used equivalent exchange. However, it couldn't be considered as an equivalent exchange. Xiao Xian didn't walk far when he saw several people from the drumming tribe who were buying without haggling. Then he looked at the people from the Pu tribe who were smiling. It was obvious that they had gained a lot from trading with the drumming tribe. No wonder the Pu tribe people were looking forward to the arrival of the drumming tribe's trading team, no wonder they were so enthusiastic. The drumming tribe people looked very fierce, but in fact they didn't have many other thoughts. In the eyes of the Pu tribe people, to put it bluntly, the drumming tribe people were just stupid people with money. Before coming, Xiao Xian heard Fu Shi complain about why the drumming tribe people weren't welcomed outside. Why were the Pu tribe people more welcomed by other tribes than them? On one hand, the drumming tribe people had bad tempers. On the other hand, it was because they weren't very smart and didn't know how to talk. They weren't as good as the Pu tribe people. Of course, this also had to do with their faces. Every time the drumming tribe people went out, they would be treated as people with bad intentions. Because they looked too fierce, especially when they looked at people, it was like a cold knife cutting through people. On the other hand, the Pu tribe people made people feel more amiable. Look at their smiles, how warm. As he walked, Xiao Xian paid attention to the surrounding houses that displayed all kinds of items. Pottery, stone cores, and all kinds of strange things from other tribes. The old people in the tribe treated the pottery as treasures. They could also be seen here, but the price was very high. What made Xiao Xian surprised was that he also saw a piece of linen. You like it? This is from the central region. I heard that the people in the central region love to use this kind of cloth to make clothes. The man said proudly. He was wearing a short skirt made of linen, which he showed off in the tribe. Although many people didn't like this kind of thing, once they heard that it was from the central region, their attitude immediately changed. Therefore, when this man said it, he didn't use too many words to embellish it. He only emphasized the words from the central region, waiting for Xiao Xian to show a look of surprise, and then use a lot of water moonstones to exchange for it. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. Xiao Xian only calmly asked about the central region, and then gave him a small piece of water moonstone as a reward and left. After Xiao Xian left, the man looked at the small piece of water moonstone in his hand. Although this piece was already a big profit, he was still not reconciled. Why didn't he keep him? That was something he had painstakingly obtained from the central region. This kid didn't even show a look of surprise. Could it be that he hadn't seen it before? Or did he know that he didn't have the money to buy such an expensive thing? Xiao Xian didn't know that in the eyes of the shopkeeper just now, he had already become a poor country bumpkin. In Xiao Xian's eyes, that piece of linen was very coarse, and wouldn't be more comfortable to wear than animal skin. Using a large piece of water moonstone to buy such a coarse piece of cloth, was he stupid? Not long after, that piece of linen was bought by Fu Shi, one of the local tycoons of the drumming tribe this year. Xiao Xian didn't speak for a long time after seeing this. Sure enough, their values were different. Perhaps the two words "central region" was already the biggest golden signboard. Looking at Fu Shi's happy face, then looking at the envy of the other people of the drumming tribe, Xiao Xian felt that he still hadn't fully adapted to the rhythm of this place. What kind of place was this central region? Was it more developed than here? Was the Yanjiao tribe in the central region in the past? It was said that the colored pottery came from there. Because it was fragile during the transportation process, the colored pottery transported here was very expensive. Among the nearby tribes that often came to the Pu tribe to participate in the trade, Only the drumming tribe bought the most of it. Touching the water moonstone in the animal skin bag, this was really a good thing, comparable to gold. After staying in the Yinjiao tribe for so long, he had forgotten the benefits of money. The people of the drumming tribe didn't know much about the central region. They only knew that the things from the central region were very good, so every time they came, whenever they heard that something came from the central region, they would immediately take out their animal skin bags to buy it, not even asking for a price. In addition to these, the Poo tribe also had many local specialties such as frogs. Of course, this didn't mean that they would sell the frogs. For the Poo tribe who used frogs as totems, they wouldn't kill the frogs here. What they sold were things taken from the frogs such as poison, medicine, and other special things. Xiao Xian came to an oval-shaped house. This place was a bit remote, so not many people of the drumming tribe came here to trade. An old man sat cross-legged on the ground in front of the door. In front of him, there were no pottery, stone tools, or things from other tribes, only a few frogs with different shapes, sizes, colors, and patterns. Next to him was a large basin of water. After a while, the old man reached out and scooped water from the basin, sprinkling it on the frogs in front of him. When Xiao Xian came over, the old man had just finished sprinkling the water. Seeing Xiao Xian come over, the old man's eyes lit up. "What do you want?" "These are?" Xiao Xian pointed at the frogs lying motionless in front of the old man and asked. "You're not from the drumming tribe? Is this your first time in our tribe?" The old man didn't feel disappointed because Xiao Xian wasn't from the drumming tribe. Instead, he smiled very happily because once the people of the drumming tribe bought something, they would first choose the same place as last time. This place was a bit remote, so the old man rarely met people from the drumming tribe when trading. Instead, he was more interested in customers from other tribes. "Yes, it's my first time in the Poo tribe," Xiao Xian said, his eyes staring at the frogs on the ground. A few frogs, the small ones were only the size of a fingernail, and the big ones couldn't even be held by a palm. The old man enthusiastically introduced the characteristics of these frogs to Xiao Xian, as well as the things they could contribute. This one's body can be used to save people. Dizziness, chest tightness, vomiting, body weakness, and so on can be treated. And this one, its body can be used to firmly stick two planks together. As he said this, the old man made a goo-goo sound, then held a thick leaf and waited. Xiao Xian looked at the orange-patterned frog. At this moment, its pupils shrank. Because it was horizontal, it looked like it was squinting as if it was preparing something. After waiting for a few seconds, nothing happened. Xiao Xian looked at the old man, then at the frog on the ground. Was this frog constipated? Just as he was thinking, Xiao Xian saw the orange-patterned frog secreting some translucent liquid from its back. As the liquid increased, the old man quickly used the thick leaf in his hand to scrape the liquid off. The leaf wouldn't hurt the frog, so the Poo tribe often used this method to get the liquid. The old man took out 2 wooden blocks, then smeared some of the liquid on the thick leaf. The wooden blocks closed, and after a while the 2 wooden blocks were firmly stuck together. This thing was simply the same as the glue that the Flaming Horns tribe found to be used to glue things together. "How many of these do you have?" Xiao Xian asked. "As many as you want." The old man was so excited that his hands were shaking. "What are the others?" Xiao Xian let the old man continue to introduce them. He was very interested in these things. The old man was also in high spirits as he explained to Xiao Xian one by one. There were all kinds of strange frog secretions. There was also a frog that secreted oil on its skin, which was preferred by some people in arid areas. These frogs for the Poo tribe were simply a tool to make money. Because the old man had some stock at home, Xiao Xian took out the water moonstones and according to the old man's price, selectively bought some. "Right, do you sell frog poison here?" Xiao Xian asked. "You want?" The old man carefully looked around, then said to Xiao Xian, "Of course, follow me." Chapter 168. The old man looked around as if he was guarding against a thief. He quickly tidied up the things in the house and called out twice. The frogs that were originally lying quietly on the ground by the door all jumped away. Some ran into the forest, while others ran towards the river. After tidying up, the old man pulled Xiao Xian in one direction. While walking, he explained to Xiao Xian in a low voice, "You want frog poison, so naturally you want frog poison with good effects. My grandson can get it for you. You can have whatever you want." The old man was afraid that Xiao Xian would change his mind and turn around to leave, so he kept talking to Xiao Xian. He was afraid that Xiao Xian would find it troublesome and go to other people's houses to buy. After all, there were many people in the Poo tribe who sold frog poison. For example, many people in the drumming tribe liked to buy tools that had already been smeared with frog poison. They would directly wrap it up, stuff it into a basket and leave after paying some water moonstones. What the old man wanted to do now was to take Xiao Xian to get it on the spot. Compared to other people, it was a bit more troublesome. Xiao Xian didn't think much of it. As long as he could get what he wanted, he didn't mind if it was a bit troublesome. Moreover, after seeing the things that the old man scraped from the frogs, he was quite curious. In the past, when he was in the Yinjiao tribe, when he went out to hunt, the warriors also liked to use some things that came from animals. They used those poisons to smear the weapons in their hands, such as spearheads, bows and so on. Among them there were various kinds of poisons. Frog poison was more commonly used. When the Yinjiao tribesmen took frog poison, they would first kill the frog, then roast the dead frog over a fire. As they roasted, the poison would slowly seep out from the frog's glands. After the frog poison came out, as long as they took the weapon and smeared it back and forth on the frog's body, the desired effect would be achieved. For poisonous frogs, the warriors only needed to smear a bit of frog poison on their weapons to hunt prey. Generally, wild beasts that were poisoned by frog poison would die very quickly. Ferocious beasts had stronger resistance and wouldn't die, but their movements would be affected. We're almost there. Don't worry, the old man said hurriedly. Xiao Xian was not in a hurry, but the old man next to him was. He pulled Xiao Xian to a place by the river. Looking at the big lotus leaves in the river, he shouted, "Hey, are you there?" The lotus leaves on the surface of the river swayed with the wind. Some frogs in the river croaked, but there was no human voice. The old man was so angry that his beard trembled a few times. He said again, "Come out, I see you." Still no one answered. The old man took a deep breath and roared, "Get out here. I know you're here." Finally, a helpless reply came from a cluster of lotus leaves not far away. "Yes, Grandpa. What's the matter?" A figure jumped out from the lotus leaves and landed on a large lotus leaf by the river bank. He glanced at Xiao Xian and then looked at the old man. "Grandpa, you can sell whatever you want. Why did you call me? I'm still sleeping." "Why are you sleeping?" The old man's eyes bulged as if they were going to pop out. "Come here, this young man from another tribe wants to buy frog poison. There are so many frog poisons in the tribe. It doesn't matter where I buy them. Grandpa, I remember you collected several jars at home." Zhao yawned and said. The old man stopped breathing and mumbled. He didn't look at Xiao Xian and wasn't afraid of the thorns on the stem of the lotus leaf. He bent his arm and picked up the stem. "Come down. Sleeping all day, are you in a hurry to get through the winter?" Zhao had no choice but to jump down from the lotus leaf. His eyes were half closed as if he hadn't woken up yet. He looked at Xiao Xian. "You want to buy frog poison? What kind?" The old man slapped him and then looked at Xiao Xian with a smile. "Young man, what kind of frog poison do you want?" Xiao Xian thought for a moment and said, "Can I take a look at those frogs first?" He didn't know how different the frogs here were from the ones in the Yinjiao tribe. Of course. The old man didn't wait for Zhao to answer and quickly answered. Zhao whispered, "Trouble," and then jumped on the lotus leaf. His cheeks puffed up and he made a few goo-goo sounds before returning to the shore. After a while, Xiao Xian saw some frogs jump out from the forest and a few from the river. Most of these frogs were brightly colored, but there were also some that didn't look very conspicuous. Each frog was no bigger than a palm. After jumping over, they surrounded Zhao and didn't run away. They just stood there and occasionally moved their hind legs to wipe away the mucus on their bodies to keep their skin moist. "These are all dead. This frog's poison can relieve pain and it's very effective. I used it on the wild beasts on the mountain over there," Zhao said. "And then?" Xiao Xian asked. "They died." "Xiao Xian, if you use too much, even if it can be used as medicine, it's poison," Zhao said. "If you use poison well, it's medicine. If you don't use it well, it's poison." Xiao Xian naturally knew this. This one, and this one's poison is not bad. Just a little bit can kill the wild beasts in the forest. Zhao introduced a few of the frogs to Xiao Xian and then asked, "What kind of poison do you need? Poison blind? Poison mute? Numb all over? Rotten?" After asking a lot of questions, Zhao stopped and looked at Xiao Xian. He usually didn't like to participate in transactions, but since his grandfather had pulled him over, he naturally had to do his part. Otherwise, if he didn't get this deal done, his grandfather would nag him again when he went back. When Xiao Xian heard this series of questions, he was stunned. When he was in the Yinjiao tribe, he also used a lot of poisons, but he had never differentiated them so carefully. It seemed that the young man in front of him was very good at this. Seeing Xiao Xian staring at the frogs and not saying anything, the old man standing next to him became anxious. If you don't know which one to choose, you can buy some of them and try it out. Then he turned to Zhao with a stern face. Hurry up and make some poisonous stingers. Zhao scratched his head and helplessly said, okay. Then he walked towards the forest and the old man eagerly pulled Xiao Xian to follow him. Although this kid in my family is a little lazy, but his understanding of poisonous frogs, this old man doesn't dare to say that he's the best, but he's definitely ranked in the front of the tribe. Xiao Xian followed them into the forest. These two people didn't have any malicious intentions, and they weren't like the Pu tribe traders who had a belly full of ulterior motives. Moreover, Xiao Xian also wanted to see how the Pu tribe people would extract poison from the frogs. Xiao Xian believed in Zhao's understanding of poisonous frogs. Around Zhao's eyes and eyelids were a dazzling bright yellow pattern, which was very similar to the poisonous frog that had just jumped out. What kind of pattern would be drawn according to one's preference? From this, it could be seen that Zhao was very fond of poisonous frogs, so naturally he understood them better. While walking in the woods, when passing by some plants with long thorns, you would break off some hard thorns from them. When he had a lot of hard thorns in his hand, you would stop. Then he used the stone knife that the old man carried with him to chop a piece of wood. He split it in the middle and placed the wood on the ground. You croaked a few times. After waiting for the frogs to come over, he took out a hard thorn. You held it between his index and middle fingers and rubbed it on the body of the nearest frogs with blue patterns. Some transparent liquid was secreted from the frog's body. This was the frog's poison that could kill an entire deer. The long hard thorn was smeared with the poison, but it did not hurt the frog at all. After smearing it, Zhao turned his wrist, palm facing down, and slapped the wood he had just split open. When he retracted his hand, the poisoned hard thorn had been firmly nailed to the wood. The tip of the hard thorn was facing up, and the one that was nailed into the wood was the broken end. Just like when nailing a nail, the other end was nailed into the wood, not the tip of the nail but the other end. From this series of actions, it could be seen that Zhao was very proficient in this. He had done this many times before. One by one, the hard thorns smeared with poison were firmly nailed to the wood. There were 5 thorns for each type of frog poison. When one type of frog was finished, he would change to another frog and continue to apply the poison. Although this frog's poison may not be able to kill people, but this is its main effect. Zhao used the hard thorn to smear on a dark blue frog, and then smeared the poison on the hard thorn onto the leaves of a nearby plant. With a sizzling sound, a hole was quickly corroded where the poison was smeared on the leaf. There was still smoke coming out and it smelled a little pungent. When the poison was smeared, there was no smell at all. It was hard to imagine that this kind of poison was taken from a frog that was not even the size of a palm. As for the hard thorns used by Zhao, because the surface of the thorns had a layer of corrosion-resistant hard skin, they would not be corroded by the poison. Zhao continued to nail the hard thorns smeared with poison onto the wood. When the poison on the thorns dried, he took them off the wood and wrapped them in something. When he needed to use them in the future, he could just take them out. The effect of the dried poison would not weaken much, but there was a time limit. The longer the poison was left, the weaker the poison would be. Xiao Xian watched as Zhao nailed the hard thorns into the wood with his bare hands. He knew that many frog poisons could only work through the blood. If they did not cut, the poison would not have much effect. Many of them would only cause a rash on the fingers and would not be fatal. When the warriors of the Yinjiao tribe caught animals with poison, they would take certain protective measures. They would either wrap their hands with something or use other tools to catch them. But now, there were many frog poisons here that could work directly through the skin. There was no need to cut, but the person who made the hard thorns was very calm and used his fingers without any protection. If even a little bit of poison came into contact with the skin, it would corrode the skin and create a hole or be poisoned. Especially when the thorns smeared with poison were nailed into the wood. Many people were worried that the poison on the thorns would slide down to their fingers. But Zhao was always able to pull back the moment the poison dripped down, so the poison did not touch his fingers at all. What surprised Xiao Xian even more was that after there were no more thorns nailed into the wood, Zhao would directly hold the remaining thorns in his mouth. His teeth would bite the end of the thorns that was not stained with poison. As long as even a little bit of poison touched his lips, he would feel better. This was a very dangerous thing to do, but the old man next to him was not surprised. He had seen it many times and was not worried. After the thorns were smeared with poison, the poison on the thorns gradually dried. Zhao then pulled out the thorns with poison. Of course, this time he did not do it with his bare hands, but with the help of leaves. Passing the wrapped thorns to Xiao Xian, Zhao said, Well, you can try these. If you think they are good, you can come again. Just find this old man. I'm going to sleep. Chapter 169. In the end, he was not able to sleep and was dragged back home by the old man. The drumming tribe would only leave tomorrow, so who knew if the drumming tribe would come to his house to trade for something. He was a person who had done a lot of research on frog poison, but he spent most of his time sleeping in the tribe. Sometimes he would run to the river to find a suitable place to sleep on a lotus leaf. Other times he would enter the forest to sleep on a tree branch. Now there was only him and his grandfather and his family, but he wasn't interested in trading. He wanted to go out of the tribe to play, but the old man wouldn't let him. Xiao Xian did not have other things to do. He was not interested in pottery and coarse linen, so he simply went to talk to you about the frog poison. Since he was very knowledgeable about frog poison, he naturally knew how to use it. It would be great if the traps could be improved because of this. Since he was bored, you chatted with Xiao Xian. Like many Pu tribe people, you also felt that the drumming tribe people were really stupid. Other than stone tools, they also liked to buy impractical things. If I had so many water moonstones, I would trade for a lot of food or some suitable materials and tools. When I was hungry, I would eat, and when I was full, I would go out to play. You said. You also used frog poison to make traps and catch wild beasts. Some of the wood and stone he needed were not available around, so he could only trade with other tribes to see if he could get some. Listening to Yu's story, Xiao Xian only felt that the Yinjiao tribe's life was simply too different from these people's. The drumming tribe people did not have to worry too much about food. There were fish in the river and some wild beasts in the nearby forest. If the wild beasts were not enough, they could use water moonstones to trade with other tribes. The only thing they had to worry about was the annual water moonstone harvest. Of course, there might not be a situation like this every year. As for the Pu tribe people, most of them did not like to hunt. Compared to risking their lives to hunt, trading allowed them to get more resources. Not only food but also other daily necessities. Since their ancestors had tasted the sweetness, their descendants would do similar things. Even now, in the hearts of the Pu tribe, trading had become an essential part of their daily life. Except for the teams that had to travel far, most of the people in the Pu tribe only needed to stay in the tribe and wait for the other tribes to come and trade. They didn't need to go to those dangerous, cold, dry and other places that they didn't like to fight with wild beasts or even fierce beasts. The surrounding tribes, including the drumming tribe, did not like to travel far, so they could only wait for the Pu tribe's expedition team to come back and trade with them. There weren't as many ferocious beasts here, and the forest wasn't as dangerous as the ones in the Yinjiao tribe. From the drumming tribe to the Pu tribe, it only took half a day. With the speed of the Yinjiao tribe's hunting team, it wouldn't even take half a day. This was the human world, the gathering place of humans. They didn't have so many threats from ferocious beasts. Instead, they only had disputes between human tribes. Every tribe had their own favorite way of life. Simply put, the people of the Pu tribe had the talent of being merchants. Where do traveling teams usually go? The central region? Xiao Xian asked. Most of the time they go to the central region. Why do you want to go? Yes, I originally came out to gain experience. Xiao Xian said. He was suddenly envious. He also wanted to go out. Many young people wanted to go out. The tribe's expedition team was made up of young adults. Every time he saw his peers go out with their parents, he also wanted to go. Unfortunately, his parents had already passed away. That year, the expedition team suffered heavy losses. More than 70% of the people didn't come back. Because of this, the old man didn't let you go. Actually, although the expedition team is dangerous, it isn't always so dangerous. You said. In the Pu tribe, Chief Guangho was also very supportive of young people joining the expedition team. This was not a peaceful era. There were no laws and regulations. Killing people to steal treasures was not uncommon. In the expedition team, everyone had the ability to protect themselves. It's a pity that the old man doesn't let us go. Yu was very annoyed. He studied the frog poison in addition to his interest, it was also to prepare for the expedition. Your tribe, when will the expedition team leave again? Xiao Xian asked. Just now, you had said that the tribe's traveling team would come back a few days after the 2 moons overlapped. Every time they would come back on those days to exchange more things with the drumming tribe. After the exchange, they would take the water moonstones and other things and leave the tribe, setting off for a long journey. After chatting with you for a while, Xiao Xian went to find Fu Shi. Tonight, the drumming tribe would stay here for 1 night. They would leave tomorrow morning. Xiao Xian also went to inquire about the Pu tribe's expedition team. In the expedition team they could bring some people from other tribes, but they had to pay extra water moonstones. Xiao Xian didn't care about this as long as he could follow. Right now he didn't know much about the topography and tribal divisions. Following the Pu tribe's expedition team was not a bad idea. He went to find the leader of the expedition team, paid 3 water moonstones, and took a token with a frog pattern. On the day of the expedition team's departure, Xiao Xian only needed to show this token and he could leave with the Pu tribe's expedition team. Hearing that Xiao Xian wanted to join the expedition team, Fu sure didn't understand. They felt that waiting here was more cost-effective. When the Pu tribe people brought the things over, they only needed to exchange water moonstones. Why should they follow? Giving away 3 water moonstones for nothing. But thinking about it, Xiao Xian came out to gain experience. Fu sure was relieved. He didn't continue to persuade him, but his heart still maintained his own thoughts. The next day the drumming tribe people prepared to leave. Fu sure looked at his rattan basket full of things and was very happy. In addition to the necessary stones, stone tools and so on, there was also good-looking pottery and a piece of linen from the central region. When he went back he would probably attract the envy of others. Thinking of this, Fu sure couldn't help but laugh a few times. He felt that this trip was really worth it. But in the short term he wouldn't come here to trade. When it was almost winter he would come back to trade for some food. We'll go back first. Xiao Xian, if you come back, remember to come to the drumming tribe to find us. Fu sure carried the rattan basket, standing on a crocodile, and said to Xiao Xian on the shore, "Okay, I'll definitely come back to find you." Watching the drumming tribe people leave, Xiao Xian planned to chat with the Pu tribe people who were preparing for the expedition, hoping to get more information. Just as he was chatting with people, Xiao Xian saw Fu happily running by. "Fu, where are you going?" Xiao Xian asked. Seeing Xiao Xian, Fu's smile became bigger, and he came to share his joy. "My grandfather agreed. Aha, I just went to find leader Fan Ning. In a few days I'll go with them." Speaking of this, Fu didn't have the sleepy look from yesterday. He was full of energy and couldn't wait to run a few laps around the tribe. Fan Ning was the leader of the Pu tribe's expedition team. He was called leader by the people in the team and Xiao Xian was looking for him. "Congratulations," Xiao Xian said. I won't say any more. When we go back we need to prepare more." Fu rubbed his hands and narrowed his eyes, just like those poisonous frogs brewing their venom. In the next few days Xiao Xian also saw other tribes coming to the Pu tribe to trade. The Luo tribe was good at fishing. They were close to the river and had a mountain to rely on, so they could catch fish and many beasts with their nets. They never lacked food. Every time the Luo tribe people came, they would have a big net of prey to trade with the Pu tribe people. In addition to the Luo tribe, there were other small tribes. They were not as rich as the drumming tribe, and did not catch as much food as the Luo tribe. But each tribe had their own survival skills such as making stone tools, finding stone materials and some rare materials. Some were also good at using medicine, directly using medicine or natural herbs to trade. In the few days that he stayed in the Pu tribe, Xiao Xian had exchanged a lot of good things. Since he was preparing for the expedition, he naturally needed some good stone materials. He himself knew how to make stone tools, so he didn't need to use more water moonstones to exchange for polished stone tools. Stone tools, herbs, they all needed to be prepared. High-quality stones were not easy to find in this area, so Xiao Xian exchanged more. The Pu tribe's expedition team set off 10 days later. On the day of departure, Xiao Xian's things were all prepared. The team had close to 200 people, and more than 90% of them were from the Pu tribe. The expedition team gathered by the river. Fu had a big animal skin bag hanging around his neck and a big rattan basket on his back. He was panting as he ran over, followed by the old man. There were also other people around to see them off. The rattan basket was filled with many things including stone knives, spearheads and many dried meat and roasted insects. The old man gave some things to the people he knew in the team, and Xiao Xian's hand was also stuffed with a bottle of frog poison. It was Fu's first time joining the expedition team, and the old man hoped that everyone could help look after him. He was indeed a businessman, his brain was flexible, and he knew how to do things better than the people of the drumming tribe. Xiao Xian thought. Seeing Fu panting, Xiao Xian reached out and took the rattan basket from his back. "I'll hold this for you, I'll give it to you when we get on the raft." "Hey, no need, you also brought a lot of things. My basket is very heavy, you can't carry it." Fu hadn't finished speaking when he saw Xiao Xian easily lift the rattan basket with one hand. Fu and some people around looked at Xiao Xian, who was still relaxed, and asked, "Which tribe are you from?" They had never seen anyone stronger than the people of the drumming tribe. Yinjiao. Xiao Xian said. Oh. Fu and the others silently memorized this tribe's name. Xiao Xian smiled, then took the things and jumped onto the raft with the others. The shaman gave Xiao Xian some tasks. Because of natural and man-made disasters, the Yinjiao tribes were divided, and the one on the other side of the river was only one of the divisions. What Xiao Xian needed to do was to find another Yinjiao tribe. Only until now he hadn't heard anything about Yinjiao. The shaman gave the stone card to Xiao Xian, and also drew a totem pattern on Cha-Cha's feet. He didn't want Xiao Xian to hide anything. If the world had already forgotten about the Yinjiao tribe, then everyone would remember this name. Besides, even if he tried to hide it, once the battle started and the totem pattern was revealed, everything would be known. There was no need to lie. Chapter 170. The traveling team left from another river in the Pu tribe, and they also used the waterway. This river did not have many lotus leaves, and on the rafts stood people. Xiao Xian and you were on the same raft, listening to the other people telling you about their travels. In the sky above the rafts, Cha-Cha followed. Xiao Xian had already told Fan Ning about this. At that time, Fan Ning wanted Xiao Xian to pay an extra water moonstone, but was rejected by Xiao Xian. Cha-Cha could warn in the sky and could reduce the chances of the Pu tribe encountering danger. With such benefits you still want to charge? Now the business here was not developed, but these people already had the potential to be profiteers. In the end, although Fan Ning's face was not very good, he did not insist. Since it was a long journey, naturally it would not be a matter of 1 or 2 days, sometimes it would take up to 100 days. Probably because there were more human tribes in this area, it was not as dangerous as the hunting area on the other side of the river. Sometimes they would encounter some trouble from underwater or harassment from other tribes, but overall, it was still peaceful and safe. Because of their frequent travels, the people of the Pu tribe were very clear about which waterway was safer and which direction was less troublesome. Xiao Xian also memorized these routes in his heart, and when he was free he would draw these on animal skin to complete the map. If one day the Yinjiao tribe on the other side of the river came back, they would need these maps. Nearly 1,000 years had passed and the changes were very big. This place was completely different from what the ancestors had recorded. As they moved forward, the river became wider and wider. Near the river there would always be some traces of human activity. Listening to the people beside them, there was a small tribe not far ahead, but that small tribe did not like to interact with people from other tribes. They were also reclusive, and when they saw people from other tribes, they would avoid them or throw stones and wooden arrows. The Pu tribe was very unhappy with this, but they would not delay the travel speed because of this. Be careful. The person beside them who had many years of travel experience reminded them. On the shore in front, there were a few women wearing animal skin washing things. When they saw the raft team, they quickly dragged their things and ran. When the wooden raft team passed by, some arrows were shot from the forest on the slightly higher ground on the shore. This kind of strength was nothing to Xiao Xian, or even to the warriors of the Yinjiao tribe. They could easily catch it and break it. However, if there were a lot of such arrows, it would be annoying. The people of the Pu tribe used their wooden shields to block the incoming arrows. Xiao Xian used his blade to cut down the arrows. If it was a big tribe, maybe the Pu tribe would take a step back and communicate with them. But for such a small tribe, the people of the Pu tribe were too lazy to pay attention to those eccentric people. The speed of the rafts increased, and only after the rafts left that area did the arrows stop. In fact, the people hiding in the bushes might not have really wanted to kill the people passing by. They were just trying to scare them. If they really wanted to kill them, they would have used a more forceful method instead of using these wooden arrows that didn't even have a sharpened head. There were many tribes around, and the presence of the small tribes was very low. Most of the tribes only had a few hundred people, and their strength was not strong. They were born and died quickly, so the Pu tribe did not pay too much attention to them. The people of the Pu tribe around Xiao Xian did not want to talk too much. They only cared about their own interests. 2 days later. In front of us is the fork. We will stay there for 2 days. The person next to him looked at the dark sky and said. In front of them, the river was divided into two, forming a Y shape. There were many people from other tribes who were traveling to the central region. The Pu tribe knew many of them, and sometimes they would travel together to make the traveling team bigger. This way they would have more security. There were too many strong people in the central region. They could only use numbers to fight. Xiao Xian looked over. On both sides of the river there were no mountains, no dense forests, and became flat. Here there were many houses. There were wooden houses and also stone houses. The architectural style was also diverse. There were oval, triangular, flat-roofed wooden huts, pointed-roof, thatched roofs. Just by looking at this, one could see that this was not a tribe. Looking at the people, although the characteristics were not as obvious as the houses, people who saw them would have the same thought. These people were too mixed up, like a plate of loose sand. Every grain of sand came from different river basins and then gathered here. Although there were many people, but many of them looked very weak. Some were as thin as a match, some had lifeless eyes. Regardless of whether they were adults or children, they were all the same. The children were slightly better. In addition to their physical condition, some would even smile. But the adults, more often than not, were at a loss and depressed. In the end, what happened to these people that made them like this? These people are? Xiao Xian asked the people next to him who were very experienced. You mean them? The people of the Pu tribe glanced over, some sighed, some did not care. They are wanderers. The wanderers they spoke of were not tourists, but those who were homeless and had no place to live. They were like rootless duckweed, often moving around, doing all kinds of things to survive. They are people who lost their fire seed. A person of the Pu tribe next to them said. People who lost their fire seed, no matter where they went, their life would be in darkness. Without their fire seed, where would their power come from? Lost their fire seed? Xiao Xian was very curious about this statement. Yes, their tribe no longer exists. Their fire seed was extinguished and they lost their source of power. The person said. In the year Xiao Xian awakened, the shaman told them that their source of power was in their body. Under the call of the fire seed, it would gradually begin to awaken, which was the totem in their mind. If the fire seed was extinguished, it meant that the tribe no longer existed. The totem would naturally dissipate, and the source of power in the body would naturally fall into a deep sleep, or even disappear. No wonder those people were in such a state. The tribe was gone, the totem power was gone, and they became wanderers, wandering in the world at a loss. The only thing they could do was to survive, completely dominated by survival instinct. However, the fire seed being extinguished, this statement made Xiao Xian very surprised. He originally thought that the special flame would exist for a long time, but now it seemed that it could be extinguished. But when it was extinguished, the tribe would be gone. According to the people of the Pu tribe, after the fire seed was extinguished, the tribe would disappear. Some people would use their own special survival skills in exchange for food. For example, coolies. Perhaps, for the rest of their lives, they would be in such a state of wandering. Some people would abandon their beliefs and join other tribes. Their descendants would naturally awaken the totem of other tribes under the call of the fire seed of other tribes. But if the totem power in the body was too mixed, it would be good if the awakening was successful. Even if they would be discriminated against, at least they would have a safe place to stay and a place to belong. But if the awakening failed, they would be driven out of the tribe and continue the wanderer life of their ancestors. Why don't they go hunting? Xiao Xian asked. But after asking, Xiao Xian realized that there might be various situations. Without the totem power, hunting was too risky. Hunting? You smiled? Unless they have to, they won't go hunting by themselves. Even if this place was not like the forest on the other side of the river, but in many places, it was impossible for one or two people to resist. At least a team was needed to barely survive, especially those who had been abandoned by the fire seed. Without faith and power, 9 out of 10 people would die. If both parents are not wanderers, what will happen to the offspring? Xiao Xian asked. Generally speaking, many tribes do not require marriage with people within the tribe, for example, our Pu tribe. As long as the descendant accepted the guidance of the fire seed, it would be fine. However, there was only one choice, either accept the tribe's fire seed or accept the other. He could only awaken one source of power. Otherwise, if he awakened both sources of power, it would cause conflict. The people of small tribes are more inclined to marry people within the tribe, but this also has its disadvantages. If there are too few people, it is easy to cause chaos. The Pu tribe's experienced traveler also said that in order to increase the population of small tribes, many unimaginable promiscuity occurred, making the whole tribe a mess. The people of the Pu tribe were quite disdainful of this. Xiao Xian thought about it. When the Yanjiao tribe was stranded in that place, there were not many people, but there were records in the hands of the shamans. According to Xiao Xian's records, the tribe's population growth was very slow, but very stable. There was no chaos like what you said. When he was in the tribe, Xiao Xian felt that the Yanjiao tribe's shamans did not have an easy life. Now that he heard about the situation of other tribes, If it were not for the leadership of the Yanjiao tribe, generation after generation of shamans, it might have become like that. In that situation they had to face all kinds of fierce beasts in the surrounding forest. It was not easy to develop to the scale of nearly 2,000 people today. A good shaman, a good leader was indeed very important. The Pu tribe's traveler team came ashore one after another. Xiao Xian saw a small team of 10 people quickly come over to help the Pu tribe's rafts carry things and look after the rafts on the water. There was also a person holding a whip and staring fiercely at them. Who are they? Xiao Xian asked the person next to him. You mean them? It was the same words as before, but this time the Pu tribe's people's eyes were no longer indifferent or sighing, but with extreme contempt, heavily said, "Those are slaves." Xiao Xian's eyelids jumped. At this time Xiao Xian only heard a presumptuous laughter in front of him. The laughter was a bit harsh. Looking up, Xiao Xian saw a man casually draped in a leopard pelt, smiling as he slowly walked over. He was tall and thin with a pale face, unlike the tan skin of the people around him who were busy working. His eyes were slightly squinted and he seemed to be laughing happily. But from his eyes flashed a sharp light that told Xiao Xian that this person was not easy to get along with. "Ah, we meet again." When that person came over, the leader of the traveler team, Fan Ning, quickly went to greet him. Fan Ning, who had always been unhappy with Xiao Xian, was now smiling like a flower, and went to talk to the other party. "Who is that person?" Xiao Xian asked the person next to him. This time the Pu tribe's people's voice was not so loud, slightly lowering their voice, they said, "He is the master of those slaves." In other words, the person wearing leopard skin was a slave master. Chapter 171. Although Xiao Xian was very curious about the slaves and the slave master, Xiao Xian still had to follow the travel team to settle down first. The slave master had a lot of houses here. At such an intersection there were a lot of teams coming and going. Every day, there were many people like the Pu tribe's travel team who came here to settle down. He would collect a certain fee. All the work was done by the slaves. But Xiao Xian found that the slaves who were despised by the Pu tribe, although their health was also very poor, compared to the wanderers they had something more. Right, strength, it was strength. The slaves had more strength than the wanderers. It was not necessarily strength, it could be something else, speed or reaction or something else. Some of the slaves were in pain, some were numb. They turned a blind eye to the disdain around them. Becoming a slave meant abandoning all the beliefs of the past. From now on he only believed in one thing, his master. The night was getting darker. Fan Ning did not tell the slave master that he still needed to arrange the team. The temporary place to settle down was not very good. The space was small and everyone was squeezed inside. This was better than feeding the mosquitoes by the river. Moreover, at night it was not safe outside. They might be killed by the wanderers if they went out. It was said that some crazy wanderers would even eat people when they were hungry. Although they were not afraid of them, it was always good to be on guard. It was better to stick together. As for Cha-Cha, Xiao Xian did not need to worry. This guy could survive in the hunting grounds. Here those beasts were no threat to him. Even if he encountered danger, he would find Xiao Xian. At this time, in the surrounding area, in the different houses that Xiao Xian had seen before, there were also fires lit. The people who went out to work came back with the fruits of the day's work. Some came back from the forest, some came back from the river where the travel team stopped. They also did hard work, but the pay was very little. A thin figure walked quickly through the night, the wooden stick in his hand waved quickly, driving away the buzzing mosquitoes. Coming to a small wooden house, he moved a thick wooden board, flashed in, and then quickly moved the board back to block the mosquitoes outside. He's back. Inside the house, a similarly thin woman was sitting there with a small child in her arms. She looked exhausted. The child in the woman's arms was sleeping. In the corner there was a wooden plank. It was a bed and a thin figure was sleeping on it. Yes. The man who had just returned from outside put aside the animal skin with several holes on it and took out the day's harvest. They were some fruits from the mountains, a fish and a rabbit. The surrounding wild beasts that could be hunted had mostly been hunted. If they went any further, their abilities were limited. If they went any further, they would die. As for the fruits, many of them had already been picked before they ripened. Today his luck was still good. He found a few big fruits in a corner that was not easy to be noticed by others. Seeing the fish and rabbit, the woman's eyes lit up. This was already considered good. The woman carefully put the child in her arms on the wooden bed, and went to put the fish and rabbit into the pot to cook. Because these two animals had been slaughtered and cleaned outside, they did not need to be treated much. They could be cooked directly. She came back and bit the fruits one by one. After a while, the woman put the juicy fruit next to the mouth of the 1-year-old child on the wooden bed. With food, the child did not sleep anymore. She hugged the fruit and ate quietly. The woman handed 2 fruits to her daughter on the wooden bed. Eat some first. How was it today? The woman asked. The man sighed and shook his head. At that time, there were 10 people who came here with their family. 3 of them joined other tribes, 1 successfully stayed, and the other 2 were driven away and did not survive. 4 of them were left behind by wild beasts when they formed a group to hunt in the mountains. 2 of them became slaves. The remaining person, along with his family, had been staying here for almost 10 years. If it doesn't work, I plan to find someone to leave with us. Let's go to another place. I've already talked to them today. The man said. As he was speaking, the wooden plank blocking the door was slapped. Yanshua opened the door. Hearing this voice, the man's tight muscles relaxed. He put down the stone knife in his hand, stood up and moved the wooden plank away. The person who came in was shorter than Yanshua. He was even skinnier than Yanshua, like a bag of bones. His eyes were bloodshot, and his breathing was rapid as if he was making some kind of decision. What's wrong? Yanshua asked. The other person came in and suddenly raised his head. Because he was too emotional, the expression on his face was somewhat distorted. Yanshua, I plan to go there. Saying this, the person looked in a direction. Yanshua's eyes widened in surprise. I really can't take it anymore. Today I met them and they have strength again. That person said and showed Yanshua his broken arm. This arm, according to the current situation, would not be able to recover in a short period of time. Yanshua knew who they was referring to. It was the people who came here with him and became slaves. And the direction that the person in front of him was looking at was the place where the slaves were. Yanshua opened his mouth but did not know what to say. Originally, he thought that everyone would leave together, find a better place and work hard to survive. But he did not expect that the other party had already given up and could not endure anymore. The feeling of having no strength really made people despair. Okay, I'm leaving. That person walked to the door and stopped. With his back facing Yanshua, he slightly tilted his head. Make your decision soon. Also, don't think about those impossible things anymore. After that person left, Yanshua sat there quietly looking at the fire in the bonfire and did not speak. When his eyes stared at the bonfire, the muscles on Yanshua's face twitched twice, and the veins on his not-so-thick arm could be clearly seen. The strangest thing was that the lines that appeared on Yanshua's face were not clear. If Xiao Xian was here, he would definitely recognize that these were the totem lines on the faces of the Yanjiao tribe's totem warriors. Only, compared to the totem warriors of the Yanjiao tribe, the totem lines on Yanshua's face were not clear and not stable. Sometimes they were slightly clear and sometimes they were completely hidden. And on his naked upper body and arms, there were no lines. Yanshua had always felt that his strength should be far more than this. But, because he was a wanderer, he did not have a fire seat, so he could not become a true totem warrior. He knew that his ancestors were from the Yanjiao tribe. In the words that were passed down from generation to generation, everyone remembered the Yanjiao tribe and the tribe's totem. Father said that the Yanjiao tribe still exists. Yanshua said in a low voice. The people of the Yanjiao tribe are all strong warriors. They can easily carry a bear. The fire seed's flames can cover their whole body. The flames of the Yanjiao tribe's fire seed can cover an entire mountain. At first, Yanshua was just muttering to himself in a low voice. His tone was still calm as if he was telling a story. But gradually, his tone became depressed and his eyes became red. Because of their obsession, the ancestors of the Yanshua tribe would always give their juniors names with the word Yan or Jiao. This was so that they would remember the name of their tribe. If they could find their tribe one day, their wish would be fulfilled. Therefore, the later generations were not allowed to join any other tribe. They were not allowed to be slaves. Even if they died, they were not allowed to betray their own tribe. But so many years had passed, and the Yanjiao tribe was no longer remembered by people. No one in the surroundings had heard of such a tribe. No matter how many times Yanshua said that his tribe still existed, and that his fire seed still existed, the others did not believe him. But Yanshua's strength was indeed greater than others, and he would also reveal faint totem lines. This was an important reason why he was able to persevere until now. But now he was at a loss. The other 10 people who came with him were all unable to persevere. Now only his family was left. If there were not enough people, if only his family left, they would probably die before they could go far. 2 days ago, someone left, but the next day he was found dead by the river not far away. The blood on his body was sucked dry by the mosquitoes. Half of his body was bitten by the wild beasts that came out at night in the nearby forest. If another day passed, not even his bones would be left. Even if Yan Shua's strength was greater than others, it was only relative to the wanderers. For those totem warriors it was not enough. Power. With power one could live better in such a world. This was also the reason why many wanderers who could not endure it chose to become slaves. Although they lost their freedom and lost a lot, they could still gain power from their slave masters. But how should they choose? Should they continue to endure and search, or wait for news from the Yanjiao tribe? Or, like those wanderers who could not endure it, find a tribe to rely on, or become a slave? No. Yan Shua held his head with both hands. He could not give up, he could not. Father said the tribe still exists. The woman sitting on the wooden plank looked at her husband like this. She wanted to say something but hesitated. She wanted to comfort him, but she also felt that she should be like the others and choose another path. But, just as the woman was about to speak, she realized that on her husband's body, there were some lines that extended down his face and neck. And on his arms, there were some flame-like patterns that started from his shoulders, extended to his entire upper arm and then past his elbow. That. The woman was too shocked, she could not speak. Yan Shua, who was holding his head and thinking, raised his head. His eyes were still filled with red veins. Seeing his wife's appearance, he was a little confused. But when he looked at the direction his wife was pointing at, he also saw those totem patterns that had already spread out. Since he was born, other than the faint totem patterns that appeared on his face when he was 10 years old, there were no other patterns. But now, these totem patterns that appeared, those patterns were like firewood that had been prepared long ago but had not been lit. Now they were lit one by one. Although they were not clear, they could still roughly see the patterns. Yan Shua thought of his father's words, "You have to believe that in our blood, the power is still there. It is just sleeping. Until one day when the time is right, it will start to gradually awaken." At the same time, Xiao Xian, who was squeezed into a small room with the others and resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Yan Shua's direction. Chapter 172. Xiao Xian felt the totem in his mind jumping. The sudden change woke him up from his light sleep. Surrounded by wooden walls, he couldn't see the situation outside. In the room there was a layer of hay on the ground, and many people were lying on their stomachs, snoring louder and louder. Xiao Xian quietly sensed. It was in that direction. But what happened to make the totem change like this? He wanted to go out and take a look, but soon the change stopped. The totem flame in his mind returned to its usual state, no longer surging. Xiao Xian temporarily dispelled the idea of going out immediately. Here he was surrounded by people he didn't know, and this was the slave owner's territory. If he went out at night, he would probably be regarded as a person with bad intentions and be attacked by the patrolmen. After sensing again and confirming that the totem didn't move, Xiao Xian closed his eyes and continued to rest. The next day the people of the Pu tribe didn't have any arrangements. Only Fan Ning and a few other important members of the travel team went to discuss with the other travel teams. It had nothing to do with the rest of the team. Xiao Xian originally planned to go to that direction to investigate, to see if he could find the reason for the totem's change last night, but as soon as he left the house, he was pulled away by you. You found a new kind of frog poison in the other travel teams. It was a frog species that didn't exist in their tribe. He wanted to go by himself, but remembered what his grandfather said before he left, so he pulled a few more people, including Xiao Xian. "Xiao Xian, what are you looking at?" one of them asked. "Are they all wanderers over there?" Xiao Xian pointed in that direction. The people of the Pu tribe, who had several years of travel experience, looked over there and said, "More or less, but I advise you not to go. The people over there are crazy. If you go, you may be entangled. There are many who want to join other tribes, but they are too dangerous, so very few tribes are willing to accept them." Despair made people crazy. After suppressing it for too long, intense emotions were naturally there. This made many people avoid them. "You want to go over there?" you asked. "I just want to take a look," Xiao Xian replied. "You don't have to go there now," a middle-aged man next to him said. "The wanderers there will go out early. Some will go to the surrounding mountains to look for food, and some will go nearby to see if they can find other opportunities." Xiao Xian looked in that direction. Indeed, there weren't many people walking around outside, so he left with Zhao and the others. He would come back later to take a look. Not long after Xiao Xian and the others left, Yan Shuo moved away the wooden planks in front of the house where the wanderers gathered. There was exhaustion on his face, but he was in a good mood. Compared to his eyes that were like stagnant water in the past, there was a glimmer of light in his eyes now. Last night, for the first time, he saw the totem patterns of the legendary totem warriors on his body. Moreover, they were from the Yanjiao tribe. Although the totem patterns were not clear and did not last for long, Yan Shuo felt that there was light in his life again. He was so excited that he could not sleep for the whole night. People who had been in the dark for a long time only needed a little bit of light to ignite their hope. Last night, besides the changes in the totem patterns, Yan Shuo also felt a slight change in his body. It looked the same as before, but Yan Shuo felt that his strength seemed to have increased a little. When he moved the wooden planks, he obviously felt a lot easier. Originally, he planned to leave here with the others, but after knowing that things had changed last night, Yan Shuo temporarily put down the idea of leaving. After he got up in the morning, he discussed with his wife for a while before coming out of the house. It was much later than usual. There were already people around looking for food. Yan Shuo also planned to leave, but unexpectedly, just as he was about to leave, he saw someone coming from the river bank. Seeing the other party, Yan Shuo frowned. He turned around and said to his wife in the house, "Stay in the house, don't come out." The person who came over walked leisurely with a vine whip in his hand. On the river bank, where the slaves carried goods, people like this could often be seen. They were also slaves, but compared to the lowest class slaves, they were slightly better. They were responsible for supervising the lowest class slaves, and if anyone was lazy, they would be mercilessly whipped. Probably because they enjoyed this kind of power, they usually whipped anyone who was not pleasing to the eye. Sometimes they would even beat someone to death. But as long as the slave owner did not pursue the matter, it would be fine. And the person who came over was called Li. He was a wanderer who came here from other places with Yan Shuo. Later they could not endure it and joined other tribes, but were rejected again and became slaves. And Li was the first to choose to become a slave among the people who came with them. At the beginning, Li was also just a slave of the lowest class. He had to do a lot of work every day and had very little time to rest. Sometimes he would be so tired that he almost fell down and was even whipped. However, he ran into a good opportunity. Someone had offended the leader of a relatively large traveling group, and the slave master had directly slaughtered a few people as an apology to that traveling group. It was at that time that Ruthless was promoted to the position of slave master. After becoming a slave, they could obtain new strength from the slave owner. And as they were promoted, they could obtain more resources and strength from the slave owner, and naturally their strength would also increase. The person who came to find Yan Shuo last night had his arm broken and his body full of injuries caused by Li. Maybe it was to show off his power, or maybe it was because of some personal grudges. He was ruthless towards his former companions. If it was not because there was something at the river bank and Li had to go over immediately to deal with it, that person would have died long ago. Among the people who came, some left, some died, and some were injured. Other than Yan Shuo's family, the last person could not withstand the pressure last night and chose to become a slave. Now only Yan Shuo was left. Li held a long vine whip and walked towards Yan Shuo step by step, with a sinister smile on his face. If he was also a slave of the slave owner, he might not dare to kill him directly. Although sometimes the slave owner would not care about the life or death of the lowest level slave, he was afraid that the slave owner would have other ideas. It wasn't easy for him to be promoted, so Li naturally didn't want to anger his slave master. Don't look at how that slave master was all smiles all day long. When he made a move, he was extremely cruel. Thinking back to the time when the slave master decisively killed someone with a raise of his hand, a chill ran down Li's spine. However, the slave owner would not care about wanderers. These wanderers did not know what was good for them, and even rejected the people that the slave owner fancied. At that time, the slave owner fancied Yan Shuo, who was the strongest among them. Unfortunately, Yan Shuo did not know what was good for him and rejected him. And Li seized the opportunity and chose to follow the slave owner and leave Yan Shuo and the others. Wasn't it just a little stronger? They were all wanderers, but they did not have a tribe, and their fire seed had long been extinguished. What was the difference between them? As for the Yanjiao tribe, that Yan Shuo kept telling them on the way here, Li did not believe a single word. If the tribe was still there, why would they fall into such a situation? If the tribe was still there, why did Yan Shuo not look for it? If the Yanjiao tribe really existed, why did no one in the traveling team know about it? At that time, Yan Shuo seemed to be the calmest among them, but in fact, in the hearts of others, Yan Shua was a lunatic, always fantasizing about those impossible things. What Li hated the most was the hopeful look in Yan Shua's eyes when he mentioned the Yanjiao tribe. In the past he could not beat Yan Shua, but after becoming a slave he once again had power. It was just that he did not have the time to find these former companions to communicate. But now he had a lot of free time every day. Yesterday he found one of them and today he deliberately came to find Yan Shua. In order to avoid the situation of being called away at the last minute yesterday, he also let people who were promoted by the slave owner like him to help watch the slaves by the river bank. Li held a whip in one hand and played with a palm-sized shell in the other. He heard that in the central region, there were places that liked to use beautiful shells to exchange for things. Unfortunately, the shells in this place were far from that level. They were ugly and weak just like the people here. Crack. The shell in his hand was instantly crushed into pieces by Li. I heard that you guys are not living well now? Li looked at the alert Yan Shua, and then looked at the messy wooden shack behind Yan Shua that looked like it could be blown down by a gust of wind. He smiled sinisterly and in the next moment, he raised his hand and viciously lashed out with the whip. The vine whip hit the wooden shack. The wooden shack, which was not sturdy to begin with, immediately fell down with a crackling sound, and a corner of the roof collapsed. Li. Seeing that Li intended to continue destroying his house, Yan Shua could not bear it anymore. After all, his wife and children were inside. If the house was destroyed, where would they sleep tonight? There were too many dangerous factors around and the two children were still young. It was easy for accidents to happen. Li came with a murderous intent. Yan Shua knew clearly what his purpose was, and did not expect to have a peaceful conversation. Yan Shua held the chipped stone knife that he usually used and rushed towards Li. Li looked at Yan Shua, doubt flashing in his eyes. Yan Shua seemed to be different from before? It should not be like this. What happened to Yan Shua? However, Li was not worried. No matter what happened, Yan Shua, a wanderer, was still not his opponent. Yan Shua, who instantly rushed forward, waved his knife based on his experience of hunting wild beasts. An unsuppressible fighting spirit suddenly rose in his heart. It was different from before. Although Yan Shua's strength was greater than others, his body seemed to be blocked by a large gate, and he could not create much waves. But now, although there was the same feeling of obstruction as before, Yan Shua felt that the resistance was much smaller. When he waved his knife, there was a kind of indescribable carefree feeling. Was this power? The shadow of the knife carried the power of destruction. Every knife seemed to want to harvest its prey, and slash towards Li. And on Yan Shua's face, totem patterns that were clearer than before appeared. Almost at the same time, Xiao Xian, who was pulled by Li and the others to look at the poisonous frog, moved his gaze away from the poisonous frog, and looked towards the wanderer's residence. Li, I have something to do and will leave first. Help me get some poison. Xiao Xian handed Li a water moonstone and quickly left. Hey, then we will go back to the house first. Li looked at Xiao Xian, who left in a hurry and did not think much of it. He once again looked at the poisonous frog in front of him. Chapter 173. Li originally thought that he only needed one hand to cripple him, but he didn't expect that Yan Shua would suddenly explode with power that was different from before. Even the speed at which he swung his sword was much faster. This made Li have no choice but to take out the stone sword at his waist to block. Bang 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 bang. The crisp sound of the stone swords colliding spread throughout the area where the wanderers lived. But no one came over. They all stood far away and watched. Wanderers had no power and no tribe to support them. It wasn't strange for them to be killed. Even if they got along well with Yan Shua's family and received help from him, they were unwilling to provoke the slaves of the slave masters. However, what surprised everyone was that the totem tattoo on Yan Shua's face wasn't there just now. It appeared during the battle and wasn't drawn on purpose. It was different from those scammers who pretended to be totem warriors. Although it was much fainter compared to totem warriors, it still surprised the surrounding people. The explosive power collided with the stone swords. Debris flew from the swords, hitting Li's face until he felt a stinging pain. Looking at Yan Shua again, his face was also scratched by the debris, but he didn't seem to feel it. Instead, he became braver and fiercer. Feeling the numbness on his wrist, the killing intent in Li's eyes became stronger and stronger. Fortunately, he came today. He didn't know what method Yan Shua used to increase his power. If he waited a little longer, he might become even stronger. At that time, it would be difficult to kill him. Fortunately, Although the current Yan Shua's power had increased, it was still not enough. Bang! The stone swords used by the two were not of the best quality. In addition to Yan Shua's explosive power just now, he attacked fiercely again and again. In the end, the two swords broke. The stone sword in Li's hand was the first to break. The stone sword in Yan Shua's hand also had obvious cracks. With one more strike, the stone sword would break. They couldn't be used anymore. After a short confrontation, the two separated. The surrounding wanderers who were watching were very surprised. After all, wanderers didn't have much power, and Li was promoted by the slave masters. But that Yan Shua, who was usually inconspicuous, was actually so strong. No, usually when they entered the mountain with Yan Shua, they didn't feel that Yan Shua was so strong. But today was different. That short burst just now was also strange. A totem tattoo actually appeared on Yan Shua's face. After Yan Shua stopped, he only felt a burst of pain in his arms. He had never exploded like this before, even when he was in the most dangerous situation. There seemed to be some kind of power in his body. Just now, he had unconsciously concentrated that power at one point and exploded it. That was why his attacks had been strengthened. Looking at the broken blade on the ground, Yan Shua was somewhat excited. If he was given more time, he believed that he would become even stronger. Even Ruthless would not be his opponent. Li's eyes were hazy as he looked at Yan Shua, who had his hands on his knees and was panting heavily. His heart was even more determined to kill Yan Shua today. Li threw the broken blade in his hand towards Yan Shua, but Yan Shua dodged to the side. Crack! Half of the wooden wall of the wooden hut that was hit by the broken saber had collapsed. Inside the house, Yan Shua's wife was holding their children. None of the three screamed. Yan Shua's wife had a worried look on her face. The one-year-old child in her arms stared at his father outside, as if he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know how to be afraid, and his eyes were wide open. As for Yan Shua's daughter, she stared hatefully at Li outside. She remembered that her father had helped that person before, but that person always caused trouble for her father. Now he even wanted to kill her father. Meeting the gazes of the three people in the house, the sinister smile in Li's eyes deepened. He wouldn't leave a single person in the house alive. Yo, what's the matter? A light voice floated over. Yan Shua looked over and clenched his fists. Facing Li, he was still confident, but this person he had no confidence. And the originally savage Li, after hearing this voice, immediately put on a flattering smile. Why have you come? The person who came was wearing a beast skin coat that looked like snake skin. The coat was slightly long and there was a tail-like belt at the back. On his body, there was a snake that was as thick as an adult's thigh. That pair of snake eyes that seemed to have no temperature stared at the surrounding people. Everyone who was stared at by it felt their scalp tighten. This kind of person was also a slave, but his position was one level higher than Li's. Many times the slave masters didn't care about things and let them do it. And people like Li were all subordinate to these people. Really a piece of trash. You can't even deal with a wanderer, what's the use of having you? That person said slowly. Li's forehead was sweating and he nervously ran over. He squeezed out a smile and found an excuse for his mistake. This boss, I don't know what happened to Yan Shua. He actually has a totem tattoo and his strength has increased a lot. The person who was carelessly teasing the big snake on his body raised his small eyes and glanced at Yan Shua. He sneered as if he was looking at something ugly and said with disdain, "Totem tattoo? Is a totem tattoo like that?" As he spoke, that person raised his hand and the snake slid down from his body. And on that person's body, from his neck to his arms, legs and other places, there were some clear patterns that appeared one after another. Those patterns were like rings that were linked together to form a chain. More and more wanderers were paying attention to this side, and that person felt proud. He was also a wanderer in the past, but he followed the slave masters earlier and was promoted and had more strength. Only at their level did they truly have the mark of a slave master. Not every slave was qualified to have a mark. Only those who were entrusted with important tasks by the slave masters were qualified to have it. People like Li were not qualified. 4 wanderers who did not have a totem tattoo. A totem tattoo was an extravagant hope. Even if it was not a totem tattoo, other tattoos would do as they represented strength. Some wanderers saw the slave mark on that person's body, and their eyes flashed with struggle. No matter what those marks were, it was a symbol of strength, and what they hoped to have the most was strength. Maybe becoming a slave was not a bad idea? It was just a little hard work. Maybe one day he could also climb to the level of having a mark? No matter what others thought, Yan Shuo stared at the person in front of him vigilantly. This person was very strong and he could not defeat him at all. And the other party did not hide his killing intent, which made Yan Shuo understand that this conflict was unavoidable. He would die. Not only him but also his wife and children in the house behind him. Run. He could not run away. Being targeted by these slaves, it was impossible to run away. Yan Shuo was not resigned. If there was a tribe who would dare to bully them. How did the slave masters treat the traveling teams of the tribes? How did they treat wanderers like them? He was not resigned. He finally had a glimmer of hope, but now he was going to lose his life again. Yan Shuo put one hand behind his back and made a gesture to his wife in the house. This was the way they were familiar with. He would try his best to delay the person in front of him, and let his wife and children escape. Yan Shuo, whose back was facing the house, did not know that the woman in the house was already crying. She hugged her children tightly, and held a stone thorn in her hand. She did not plan to run away. Since she could not run away, she might as well die together. Even if she could run away, she could not bring her children to live. She did not have the ability. That person walked towards Yan Shuo step by step. He was not worried that Yan Shuo would escape because he could not escape. At the same time, he also wanted to let the wanderers see the difference between them. He really enjoyed the feeling of being watched by the crowd. Looking at the dim tattoo on Yan Shuo's face that he had never seen before, that person said in a teaching tone, "A real totem tattoo does not look like this." After speaking, that person's speed suddenly increased. His 5 fingers formed a claw and grabbed towards Yan Shuo's neck. Yan Shuo only felt that the person was just a few dozen steps away, but in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of him. At this moment, Yan Shuo suddenly felt a suffocating feeling, as if his throat was already tightly gripped by that hand. However, when that hand was less than half a palm's distance from Yan Shuo, it stopped. It was forcefully stopped by someone. The person who grabbed Yan Shuo only felt a shadow flash in front of him. The hand that was about to grab Yan Shuo's throat was suddenly restrained by someone who suddenly appeared. Looking up, that person's pupils shrank rapidly, as if he had seen something inconceivable. His eyes widened as if his eyeballs were about to pop out. Li and the other wanderers who were looking at this side also stared blankly. Their line of sight moved from the face of the person who suddenly appeared to Yan Shuo's face, and then looked at the former and then back at Yan Shuo. They kept looking back and forth and finally came to a conclusion. The totem tattoo on their faces was the same. 1, 2, 1. Then tell me, what does a real totem tattoo look like? Xiao Xian grabbed that person's arm and asked in a calm voice. His tone was obviously very calm, but it made those who heard it feel as if a bucket of ice was poured over their heads. This was a real totem tattoo, one that was exactly the same as Yan Shuo's totem tattoo. It was not the dim tattoo like Yan Shuo's, but a very clear one as if it was alive. Tribe. This was what everyone who saw this thought in their hearts. Xiao Xian did not care about the others. He raised his hand and threw the person he was grabbing away. After the other person stood firm, he walked towards that person step by step, just like how that person had treated Yan Shuo at the beginning. Wherever Xiao Xian stepped, he left a deep footprint. With every step, the dust and gravel on the ground would be shaken up. No! That person wanted to say something, but Xiao Xian suddenly sped up. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of that person. He did not hold any stone tools in his hands, but like a hard stone axe, he fiercely smashed towards that person. Because of the totem power, the flame-like totem tattoo on his exposed arm spread to his elbows, making it extremely conspicuous. That person simply did not have the time to speak or be surprised. He instinctively crossed his arms and raised them above his head, intending to forcefully resist this fierce attack. A loud bang sounded in the air. That person was unable to resist Xiao Xian's sudden attack. His legs were unable to withstand such a violent force, and after bending, he knelt on the ground. Where his knees hit the ground, a deep mark was left on the ground. His 2 arms in this short period of time also let out the sound of bones breaking. The snake that was following that person previously shot towards Xiao Xian, opening its mouth to reveal 2 long sharp fangs. This was poisonous, extremely poisonous. However, Xiao Xian acted as if he did not see it, and did not react to the snake's attack. Yan Shuo was so anxious that he wanted to rush over, but he saw a shadow gliding down from the sky and flying up again, taking away that extremely dangerous snake with it. Li raised his head to look at the sky, and was met with a face full of snake blood. A snake's head was thrown down. Not bothering to wipe away the snake blood on his face, Li looked at the snake's head that had rolled to his feet. Suddenly he felt weak all over and his legs went soft. Whoosh! A figure that was much taller than a human flapped its wings and landed on the ground. The snake that was usually rampant had already lost its head, and its remaining body was being torn apart by the large bird. The sharp bird claws easily tore the snake's flesh off, opening its stomach and causing snake blood to splatter everywhere. Probably because they had experienced the humiliation of being dragged down from the sky by a snake. The creatures that Cha-Cha hated the most were snakes. They were also merciless in tearing them apart. Yan Shuo looked at the young man who had saved him. The totem tattoo on his arm was exactly the same as the one that had appeared on his arm last night. Looking at the large bird that had just landed, on the claws that were tearing apart the snake's body, a clear pattern was imprinted into Yan Shuo's vision, causing his breathing to become heavy. Tribe, the totem of the Yanjiao tribe. Yan Shuo only felt that the blood in his entire body was boiling and his whole body was trembling. He turned around and looked at the young man that he had just met for the first time today, walking over step by step. Xiao Xian came in front of Yan Shuo, grinned and said, "Let me introduce myself. I am Xiao Xian from the Yanjiao tribe." Chapter 174. The Yanjiao tribe. Many of the people who lived in the Wanderer area were familiar with Yan Shuo. They had hunted together in the mountains, so they naturally heard Yan Shuo mention the Yanjiao tribe. However, at that time they all thought that Yan Shuo was crazy and did not face reality. Even if the Yanjiao tribe still existed, it would only be a small tribe. The emergence and extinction of small tribes happened every day. Even if the Yanjiao tribe Yan Shuo mentioned was still there, it would not last long, right? However, now it seemed that it was not what they had imagined. How could a young man from a small tribe have such power? Almost effortlessly, the slave with the snake, who had caused them countless troubles, was beaten to the ground, unable to move. How could a small tribe have an eagle that was much bigger than a man? Looking at the big snake that had been torn to shreds, one could tell that this eagle was not just big. Its claws could directly nail a person to death. Tribe, what an enviable word. They had thought that Yan Shuo's family would be killed by the slave today, but they did not expect the situation to be reversed. With a tribe there was a place to belong. Their flame was still there. Yan Shuo's bitter days were over. Yan Shuo naturally knew what the others knew. However, things happened too suddenly and he did not know how to react. Since he was very young, he had dreamed that one day he could return to the Yanjiao tribe that his ancestors talked about. Every time he fought alone he would think, what kind of place was the Yanjiao tribe? How were the people there? Was the tribe big? Were the totem warriors strong? Now he looked at the person in front of him who was much younger than him, who had solved the problem with just a lift of his hand, and then looked at the big bird that was tearing the snake meat. He was so excited that he choked with emotion and did not know what to do. Xiao Xian looked past Yan Shuo and looked at the three people in the house. They were Yan Shuo's wife and children. Then he looked at the small wooden house that was about to collapse. He sighed in his heart. It seemed that this clansman did not have a good life. Moreover, he was a wanderer. Since they were wanderers, it meant that the Yanjiao tribe he was looking for was not here. Xiao Xian did not know what had happened to the other branch, but now was not the time to ask about it. Taking out some jerky from the animal skin bag, Xiao Xian stuffed it into Yan Shuo's hands. Looking at the three people in the house, Xiao Xian signaled Yan Shuo to go and comfort his frightened wife and children. They could no longer stay in Yan Shuo's wooden hut. However, Xiao Xian had the water moonstones in his hands. As long as they paid a little more, they would be able to solve this problem. As for the future, what to do in the future, he would have to discuss it with Yan Shuo later. Yan Shuo's hands trembled as he held the jerky that Xiao Xian had given him. He walked into the house absent-mindedly and almost tripped over the fallen wooden wall. Yan Shuo's wife had already wiped away the tears on her face. She held Yan Shuo's hands tightly and said happily, "It's really here. The Yanjiao tribe is really here." Because their ancestors were all wanderers, Yan Shuo's wife had never thought of joining a tribe. Her situation was different from Yan Shuo's. Their tribe had been exterminated a long time ago, and their fire was truly extinguished. They had become wanderers. But now Yan Shuo could find the Yanjiao tribe and join it. Naturally, she could also join it. Their difficult days had come to an end. Both husband and wife were very excited. Yan Shuo's wife was the first to react. She wanted to let Xiao Xian into the house, but when she thought of the situation in the house, she felt a little embarrassed. She had also seen Xiao Xian's behavior just now. She always felt very restrained when facing Xiao Xian, who was a real totem warrior. It's okay. Sisters-in-law, you are busy. I will sit by myself for a while. As he spoke, Xiao Xian looked around. He originally wanted to stack 2 planks on top of each other to make a stool, but when he saw the wooden thorns on top of each other, he gave up. His line of sight fell on the riverbank 200 meters away. Xiao Xian's mind turned and he walked over there. When Xiao Xian moved, the surrounding people looked at him at the same time. Their line of sight followed Xiao Xian. They wanted to see what this totem warrior was going to do. Yan Shua's family also looked at Xiao Xian walking towards the riverbank in confusion. Is he angry? Didn't he just say that he wanted to sit down? Is it because we don't have a place to sit? Yan Shua's wife said worriedly. It shouldn't be. Yan Shua didn't think that the people of the Yanjiao tribe would be angry because of such a reason. Yan Shua handed the remaining jerky to his daughter and looked at Xiao Xian's back. In fact, he was also worried that this tribesman who suddenly appeared would abandon his family. However, looking at the eagle that was still eating the snake and didn't seem to want to leave, Yan Shua's heart was slightly relieved. Xiao Xian walked towards the riverbank. There was a 2-meter-high and 3-meter-long oval-shaped rock there. Usually, when people came to the riverbank, they would tie the straw rope of the raft to the big rock. Because the rock was too big and heavy, even some totem warriors were too lazy to move it. At this time, some people were sitting on the rock by the riverbank, holding freshly roasted meat in their hands. These were a few people who had just used the stones they found to exchange for food with the traveling team. They were all wanderers, but there were differences in strength. They were considered the stronger ones in the wanderers' residential area, and they were in a group, so the other wanderers didn't dare to offend them. In the wanderers' residential area, they lived the best life, and they were also more domineering. They found fruit trees in the mountains and they wouldn't let others pick a single fruit. When they saw someone hunting small prey, they would even snatch it. As the saying goes, there is strength in numbers. When these few gathered together, they were also a force to be reckoned with. The other wanderers didn't dare to fight with them, and those who did were already dead. When Xiao Xian hit the slave, they also saw it, and they even took pleasure in his misfortune because they also suffered a lot under the hands of that slave, especially the leader, who secretly fantasized about roasting the snake beside that slave. Wasn't he just a slave? In order to show off his strength, he always had a big snake wrapped around his body, to show that he was stronger than the wanderers. After all, not everyone could bear the weight of that big snake and move freely. Also, with his usual arrogant appearance, did he think that he could pretend to be a slave owner? Therefore, when they saw the slave with the snake being beaten, they were secretly happy. But now, as they watched Xiao Xian walk straight towards them, they felt uneasy. Leader, he is walking towards us. One of them whispered. I know. The one who was called leader said in a low voice. What does he want to do? Snatch food. The Wanderers district usually encountered people snatching food, so the first thing they thought of was naturally this. He can't be thinking of avenging Yan Shua, right? They used to find trouble with Yan Shua, but because Yan Shua's strength was indeed stronger than the others, he was a tough nut to crack. Usually Yan Shua didn't have any conflicts with them, so they were too lazy to spend more time on Yan Shua. After finding trouble with him a few times, they ignored him. Looking at Xiao Xian getting closer and closer, the few of them became more and more uncertain. Then they did the same thing. They took the meat that wasn't cooked from the fire, and hurriedly stuffed it into their mouths without caring about the heat. This way the other party wouldn't be able to snatch it, right? Xiao Xian walked over, glanced at them and walked towards the person leaning against the rock. That leader saw Xiao Xian walking towards him, and his actions of stuffing the meat became even more hurried, his hands trembling. He could still clearly remember what happened to the snake slave just now. Lowering his head, that leader didn't dare to look at Xiao Xian. His cheeks were puffed up and his mouth was full of meat. He didn't even have time to swallow it before he stuffed another piece into his mouth. He was so full that he couldn't even close his mouth. Excuse me. That leader heard the voice from above. If it was someone else in the Wanderers district, they would have already made a move. But looking at the snake slave who was beaten to the point that he couldn't get up from the ground, the leader was conflicted. Should he beat him up, or should he hand over the unfinished meat in his hand? Don't you have to apologize first? Excuse me. The voice from above sounded again. This time that leader came back to his senses and reacted. He hurriedly moved his butt but felt that he didn't move far enough, so he moved a little more. He wanted to see how his companions were doing, but when he turned his head, he found that they had already stood up and ran away, looking at him from afar. At this time, These people abandoned their companions so straightforwardly, even if the person in trouble was their leader. Damn it. That leader cursed in his heart, wondering if he should also stand up and run away. He shouldn't anger this person, right? However, before he could get up, he felt that something was wrong. The whispers around him seemed to have quieted down. Did something happen? He felt that the people around him were looking at him strangely. That leader hesitated whether to look back or not. Soon, he found that there was a large shadow on the ground beside him. The shadow was still moving. He turned his neck stiffly and looked over there. Then he saw that the big rock that they usually couldn't move with their combined strength was easily lifted up by someone. Not only did the person lift it up, but the person also threw the rock up and down as if he was weighing something. Puff, cough, cough. He was so agitated that his emotions fluctuated too much. That leader almost spat out all the food that was stuffed in his mouth. And the people who ran away and looked over here all had their cheeks puffed up. Their mouths were open, and they could see that their mouths were stuffed with half-cooked meat. All of them stared with their eyes wide open as if their eyeballs were about to pop out. In this kind of place where people often moved around, they had seen some totem warriors move big rocks, but they had never seen anyone move it so easily. It was as if what they moved was not a rock but a small piece of wood. Xiao Xian raised his arms and moved the rock over to where Xiao Xian and his family were. Midway, because there was a bulge on the ground, Xiao Xian directly lifted the rock and jumped over it. The people around him, Yan Shua's wife, saw that Xiao Xian easily moved the big rock over, and her eyelids twitched. She said to Yan Shua, "Now I believe you when you said that the warriors of the Yanjiao tribe can easily carry a bear. Probably, if a bear was in their hands, it would just be tossed around for fun." Chapter 175. Xiao Xian lifted a large stone and quickly walked from the river bank to the door of Yan Shua's house. He kicked some wooden blocks to the side and threw the stone on the ground. Bang! Even those who stood further away felt the ground shake, not to mention Yan Shua's family. The close shaking caused another part of the wooden house, which was not very sturdy to begin with, to collapse. He had overdone it. Xiao Xian picked his nose and smiled apologetically at Yan Shua's family. "Cough about that, I'll help you fix the house later," Xiao Xian said. When he was in the tribe, building a big house did not take much time. He followed the people of the Pu tribe and squeezed into a small place only because he thought it was troublesome. He would only stay for 2 or 3 days, so building a house was unnecessary. Moreover, he was unfamiliar with the place, so it was safer and less worrisome to stay in a place arranged for him. However, now that he met people from the same tribe, it was a different story. Yan Shua's family was not angry at all. Instead, their eyes were shining as they looked at Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian was strong, so was the tribe. The stronger the tribe, the more stable they could stand in this world and survive for a long time. No wonder their ancestors repeatedly told their children and grandchildren to remember their tribe and wait for the day they returned. Now it seemed that all their efforts were worth it. After Xiao Xian threw the stone here, he jumped up and sat down. He waited for Yan Shua's family to calm down a little before he discussed matters with Yan Shua. As for moving the large stone in front of everyone, it was only a deterrent. Perhaps it was not much in other places, but here it was still useful. Looking at the happy atmosphere, Li wanted to reduce his presence as much as possible. He wanted to run as far away as possible. Xiao Xian's series of actions had already made him tremble with fear. Looking at the snake slave who was still kneeling there in pain and the broken snake head at his feet, Li took a deep breath and turned to run. However, just as he turned and took a step, a wooden stick broke through the wind and pierced through his chest. The 2 ends of the wood weren't sharpened, but it still forcefully pierced through Ruthless' chest. Before Ruthless could even sense it, he had already been hit. Kneeling on the ground, Li tried his best to keep his eyelids open, wanting to see who threw the wooden stick at him. But all he saw was a ball of golden light slowly approaching from afar. The so-called golden light was naturally not some special luminous object, but the slave owner wearing the golden fur. Yesterday, Xiao Xian saw that the slave owner was still wearing a black spotted animal skin. Today he had changed it again. The golden fur reflected the light of the sun, making the slave owner look quite eye-catching. It seemed that this slave owner liked to use this method to show his nobility. As a slave owner with a lot of slaves and financial resources, there was no shortage of animal skins. Xiao Xian learned some information about this slave owner from the other members of the Pu tribe. The slave owner's name was Shi Shu. He had only been here for a few years. Sometimes he would stay here for a while before leaving. Sometimes he would disappear for a long time. He had a lot of people under him, so he didn't need to personally manage them. It was said that the leader of the Pu tribe's traveling team had a good relationship with Shi Shu, so he could get some preferential treatment here. But Xiao Xian felt that when Fan Ning was facing Shi Shu, he was not so natural and even cautious. Shi Shu was a very dangerous person. The cruelty of a slave owner was something that everyone understood. The smile on the surface was not necessarily true, there could be a knife hidden in the smile. When Shi Shu, who was wearing a dazzling golden outfit, slowly walked over, there was still a smile on his face. It was as if the stick that killed Ruthless was not kicked by him. Beside this slave owner, there were two other people who were also his slaves. However, those two people had a relatively high status among the slaves owned by Shi Shu. They were not comparable to the snake slave that Li Yi brought. While everyone was looking at Shi Shu, who was wearing a dazzling golden outfit, Xiao Xian raised his eyes to the sky. Just now that slave owner had kicked out more than one stick. In the sky, a long shadow quickly fell from a high place. The person who had been beaten by Xiao Xian to kneel there, unable to get up, had his throat pierced from behind. He looked at his own blood flowing down the wooden stick as if he wanted to say something, but his throat could not make any other sound. The chain-like lines that originally appeared on his neck began to disappear from the wound. He raised his arm, wanting to grab the person who walked past him, but found that the distance of less than 5 steps was like a natural moat that could not be touched. He could only watch as that golden ball slowly passed by him. When all the chain-like lines disappeared, the person who often came to the Wanderer area to be arrogant, powerlessly dropped his hand, no longer breathing. The people around only felt a chill go straight to their heads, and their fear of the slave owner deepened. Xiao Xian looked at the slave owner who was walking straight towards him. He was wearing clothes made of linen, much better than the coarse linen that the Pu tribe had. And on Shi Shu's waist, there was also a very fine polished stone axe hanging from a leather rope. The stone axe was not big, the body was flat, the blade was wide, the curve of the arc was a little big, and the two corners were slightly upturned. There were also some patterns on the body, and it could be seen that those patterns were very carefully carved. And this kind of carefully crafted stone axe was definitely not used for cutting trees. This kind of autocratic primitive weapon looked like a kind of accessory that hung on the body. In addition, Xiao Xian also felt the movement of the power of inheritance from Shi Shu. The slave owner was like the combination of the chief and the shaman in the tribe. He had absolute leadership and some abilities similar to the shaman. It was just that the slaves under him were not as lucky as the warriors in the tribe. Shi Shu looked at Cha-Cha next to him, then turned back to Xiao Xian and said, "Sorry, the slaves below are not obedient." Obviously, the slave owner had understood the whole story, but he did not attack Xiao Xian as other people thought, nor did he apologize as he said. Instead, he watched Cha-Cha eat the snake with great interest. After watching for a while, the slave owner dressed in glittering gold left with his people, as if he had come just to execute the two disobedient slaves. But Xiao Xian guessed that the slave owner's goal was not so. Just now, Shi Shu's eyes stayed on Cha-Cha's feet for a while. Shi Shu's focus should be on the Yanjiao tribe. Could it be that he knew about the Yanjiao tribe? Many slave owners would often travel around the mainland, so maybe he really did know. But, looking at Shi Shu's appearance, he did not intend to say more. Shi Shu left, and the people around him also took away the two slaves who were killed. Only the two pools of blood on the ground told everyone what had happened here. After leaving the Wanderers area, one of the people who followed Shi Shu asked for the vacant position. "If you killed them, you killed them. Just promote another one." Shi Shu said indifferently. The person next to him respectfully bowed and responded. Shi Shu's answer was as he expected. Maybe the slave owner did not even know the names of the two slaves. The ranks of slaves were divided into Li, Fu, Tai, and so on. The slaves below Tai were all inferior slaves. The snake slave was only responsible for raising snakes for the master and got more power, but his rank was still a bit lower than Tai, so it was not worth the slave owner to remember his name. The slave owner naturally did not care about the life and death of the inferior people. After Shi Shu left, Xiao Xian chatted with Yan Shura. Next, Xiao Xian would definitely go to the central region to inquire about some information. With Yan Shura's current ability, it was too dangerous to go to the central region. Plus, he still had his wife and children, so Xiao Xian could not bring them all. He did not understand the situation in the central region. He only knew that many people there were very strong. Before the situation was clear, it was not convenient to bring these people. Yan Shua also knew that it was not good for his family to go to the central region, so he wanted to stay. When Xiao Xian came back from the central region, he would follow. Xiao Xian originally intended to let Yan Shuo live in another place. The slave owner was not easy to get along with. Yan Shuo refused. No need. If the slave owner really wanted to kill people, he would not wait. Just like Li and the others, he would do it on the spot. Since he did not do anything to us, he will not do anything in a short time. Yan Shuo still had some understanding of the slave owner. Moreover, I am more familiar with this place. I also know what kind of people are around here. If we change places, it may not be the same. Yan Shuo said. Xiao Xian thought about it and agreed. He only knew people from the drumming tribe and the Pu tribe here. The Pu tribe would not let people from other tribes stay in their tribe for a long time, and the drumming tribe was too far away. No one would go there. Yan Shuo's family could not go there by themselves. It was too dangerous. After thinking about it, Yan Shuo's idea was more practical. Then you can stay here for the time being. I will help you build a house. With Xiao Xian's help, the new wooden house could be built quickly. The person who came to find Yan Shuo last night was in a daze because of his injuries. He woke up very late today. When he woke up, he heard others talking about Yan Shuo and hurried over. As a comrade who had fought together, Yan Shuo also wanted to help him. Before the other party went to find the slave owner, he would let him stay with them. The new house was bigger than the previous one, so it was possible for one more person to live in it. Xiao Xian also felt that it was feasible. With more people, they could take care of each other. When I come back from the central region, I will bring you back to the tribe. Xiao Xian left some water moonstones for Yan Shuo, and also made some stone tools for him. Compared to before, Yan Shuo's strength was a little stronger now. It was absolutely possible for him to make a living, and maybe he could even hunt a lot of prey. On the day the Pu tribe left, Xiao Xian temporarily bid farewell to Yan Shuo's family. He followed the expanded travel team and continued to head to the central region. According to Yan Shuo, he was not sure what happened to the tribe that year, but he knew that there should be many wanderers like him. If he could find these people, Xiao Xian could bring them back to the tribe. Chapter 176. When they set off again, the team had expanded. In addition to the people from the Pu tribe, there were also travel teams from other tribes. After the team expanded, it became more lively. Xiao Xian could also hear a lot of gossip from other tribes. When he was resting, he would also ask people about some things. After a few days, Xiao Xian learned a lot of new information. Xiao Xian had a map in his hands. He had drawn it himself. The map left by the ancestors could no longer be used. After nearly 1,000 years, the mountains had become plains, plains had become mountains and rivers. The changes were too great. The composition and distribution of the tribes had also changed greatly. Xiao Xian needed to draw a new map to bring back, so that the tribe would not have difficulty crossing the river. At this moment, an experienced traveler was talking to Xiao Xian, telling him what he had seen in the past. At first, we did not take this road but took another one. Later, there was a war between the tribes and it has not subsided yet. We temporarily changed to this one. The river on that route was much wider than this one and there were two colors. There was a tribe beside the river. They were very good at making rafts. The rafts over there were the biggest and sturdiest ones I have ever seen. It would be great if we could also have a wooden raft like that. The man recalled, his eyes filled with envy. Seeing Xiao Xian's puzzled face, the man gestured to Xiao Xian and explained in detail the biggest and sturdiest rafts he had mentioned. After listening to the other person's description, Xiao Xian paused and said, "Is that a boat?" Yes, they call it a boat. The man continued to recall, talking about what he had seen. Only a few years had passed and many of his memories were vague. Xiao Xian memorized these. If he had time, he wanted to go there and have a look. When the time came, the people of the tribe would need a boat to cross the river. Without metal, how to make a big boat, Xiao Xian was not sure. It would be best if he could learn some technology from there. I remember that there are also many tourists over there. Another traveler was unwilling to be left out and came over to chat. It seems so, but it's just to help resist the tree and chop the wood. Hey, I heard that the slave owner also went there and took away a lot of slaves. The previous person said. In order to increase the number of slaves under their command, the slave owners would always go to some places to get people. Those wanderers who had lost their fire seeds or whose tribes had been destroyed were the favorite targets of the slave owners. However, they would not immediately go to those wanderers after their tribes were destroyed. Instead, they would wait for 1 or 2 years for the wanderers to see the situation clearly. They would only go to those wanderers when they were close to despair after suffering setbacks. At that time, some wanderers who had suffered a lot would not only not avoid the slave owners, but would also take the initiative to stick to them. Just like ruthlessness. In order to get more slaves, the slave owners would move around, and Shu, whom Xiao Xian had met before, was the same. When Xiao Xian listened to the two people, he learned about some of the places Shu had been before. Xiao Xian secretly remembered those places. He suspected that Shu had seen people like Yan Shua, or had seen the totem patterns of the Yanjiao tribe. He didn't know if it was possible that he had seen it when he was looking for slaves. No matter what, Xiao Xian intended to look for it when they passed by those places. After all, according to the words passed down by Yan Shua's ancestors, there should be a lot of wanderers scattered everywhere. After all these years, if one generation after another lived, there should be a lot of people. The Yanjiao tribe on the other side of the river did not have a large population. If they wanted to expand, the first thing to do was to call back the scattered Yanjiao tribesmen. In addition to those places, there are a lot of wanderers on the grassland we have to pass through. Slave owners often go there. A traveler said. Xiao Xian looked at the area that was not completely drawn on the map. That was the grassland. The travel team would not go deep, and would only pass by the border of the grassland. There were a lot of tribes on the grassland, and the people there were also very tough. The travel team generally would not go deep. Just as they were talking, you suddenly said, "Look in front." Xiao Xian's line of sight left the map and looked at the water in front of them. On the water in front of them, there were some people floating, and each of them had fatal wounds. "Is there a war in front?" someone asked. It seems that the scale is not small. The people around them were talking, and the leaders of several travel teams also gathered together to discuss. Finally, they decided to rest on the shore for the time being. "Let's take a break first. Send some people to scout ahead. If there is a battle between tribes, we will avoid it first or wait for it to end before we set off," one of the people in front said. The people on the raft paddled. After the raft reached the shore, Xiao Xian and the people around him spontaneously tied the raft to a tree or a big rock on the shore. They also took their own bags with them. No one put anything on the raft because they did not know when they would have to abandon the raft to escape. After all, this was not their own tribe. Especially in a place where there was a war, it was especially dangerous. It was easy to get caught in the crossfire. Each of the leaders sent a dozen or so people to scout the situation at the front. "Xiao Xian, let's go and see if there are any wild beasts around. We can hunt one and eat it," you said. When they were resting, the people in the team could hunt nearby as long as they did not go too far. If they went too far and the team did not see anyone, they would not wait. "Okay," Xiao Xian said to the people next to him. If the team set off, he would let them greet them. After leaving the tribe, Xiao Xian ate less fearsome beasts. Generally, they only hunted wild beasts, and these people did not go to places where there were fearsome beasts. He kind of missed fearsome beast meat. He did not know where Cha-Cha had gone to hunt. That guy had high requirements for food and did not like ordinary wild beasts. However, Cha-Cha had never been left behind. Even if it left temporarily, it could quickly catch up with the team. Xiao Xian was not worried about it. "Look, there's a deer over there." You pointed in a direction and said excitedly. Then he quickly took out his hairdryer and used the poisonous thorn as an arrow. He put it in and carefully approached the deer. He had to hurry. Otherwise, if the other members of the travel team got there first, there would be no food. You quietly approached the deer and Xiao Xian followed. However, Xiao Xian felt that there was something wrong with the surroundings. It was not necessarily a crisis, but something seemed to have happened. He was more careful when he sneaked around. When he was about the same distance away from the deer, you pointed the end of the blowpipe towards the deer and put the other end into his mouth. While he was blowing, his cheeks puffed up. Whoosh! The speed of the arrow was very fast, and the arrow that was blown out accurately hit the deer. The poison in the arrow needles was not a lethal poison, but a very powerful paralyzing poison. When a deer was shot, the arrow needles would pierce through the deer's skin, and the poison would spread. After the deer felt that it was being attacked, it wanted to run away quickly. However, after taking 2 steps, it staggered and fell to the ground after a few steps. "Hey, it's done." He was very excited. He was about to go and collect the prey, but he was stopped by Xiao Xian. "What's wrong?" You looked at Xiao Xian in confusion. Xiao Xian did not answer. Instead, he raised his chin in a direction. You looked over. In the woods not far from the deer, some birds flew up. They were probably alarmed by the deer's running and falling. "What's wrong with those birds?" You still did not understand. He thought about it and said helplessly, "You don't want to eat those birds, do you? Although those birds are not too small, they are not easy to catch. Why would we eat those birds when we have a deer? Xiao Xian looked at you in silence for a few seconds and said, those are scavenger birds. Scavenger birds? They eat corpses. Xiao Xian pointed over there. There are quite a few of them. Because of the deer's movement, some birds were startled, but Xiao Xian believed that it was only a small part of them. There were many that did not fly at all. The birds that flew up just now quickly flew back down. If there was no food to attract them, why would they stay on the ground? Yu's face turned serious and he put away the hair dryer. He did not care about the deer. Compared to his life, food could be put aside first. Because of the direction of the wind, when they came over, they did not smell anything strange. In addition, there were many flowers blooming near the river bank. The fragrance of the flowers interfered with the sense of smell, so they did not notice it at first. Let's go and take a look? Yu said. Before Xiao Xian could answer, Yu had already taken out his stone knife and went over. Xiao Xian looked around and did not see anyone else for the time being, so he also followed. They were getting closer and closer. Because of the dense trees, they could not see the situation there. However, as they got closer, Xiao Xian could already smell the unpleasant smell. In addition, there were also the sounds of the scavenger birds pecking at food. Probably because there were too many of them fighting with each other. Carefully pushing aside the branches in front of them, Xiao Xian saw the source of the smell. Dead people, a lot of dead people. Compared to those floating on the river, there were more here. Moreover, because there was no river water to wash them, there was a layer of red blood on the ground. Their clothes were similar to those on the river, so they should be from the same tribe. Looking at the situation, it was obvious that they had been slaughtered. These people. Yu was about to say something when he suddenly found that there was an arm moving in the pile of dead people. There's still someone alive. Hearing Yu's voice, the person who was pressed down struggled and pushed the person on top away, revealing a face full of blood. There was only one wound on his body, but it was almost fatal. Most of the others had fatal wounds on their bodies. The birds that were pecking on the ground flew up when they sensed the presence of the living people, but some gluttonous birds stayed on the ground. Help me. The man did not care about the birds pecking around him and crawled towards Yu and Xiao Xian. Yu frowned and took a step back. He did not know these people and he did not want to get involved in the struggle between tribes. He was just a traveler, not looking for trouble. Let's leave. Before you could finish, there was a whoosh. Puchi. The man who was crawling towards them was pierced by a spear and nailed to the ground. Xiao Xian raised his head and looked in one direction. There was a person standing on a tree. A man wearing a mask. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.